with our first series done, it's time to move on with the day. So let's take a look at our bracket and start to look towards the second series of the day, as it's going to be our 4th seed versus our 5th seed in Europe. We have Team Clash going up against Team Dynasty. Now, let's talk from kind of a top-down perspective about this matchup first before we get into the nitty-gritty of it. Dynasty, obviously, the 4th seed coming in. Clash going to be 5th seed here. And this is definitely two teams that they've not had perfect seasons, that's fair to say. They've been middle-of-the-table teams, but they've definitely shown potential, and this is where they can really make a name for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, this is Clash's first time on stage, and HF's guy will be the jungler, and Hell's Devil will be on his captain role. So we have to watch how Hell's Devil is going to play here. I think the dynamic duel between both of these players will be the key to their success, because when Hell's Devil is not playing well, he's overextending, big part of that team either winning or losing a lot of fights.
Yeah, we'll see whether that is going to be the case coming on through. I'm curious to see how these two teams are going to be playing once we get on into the games, because one interesting thing about this matchup is both teams are playing with a substitute. We have Tricky coming in for Dynasty, and then obviously we have Agony, unfortunately, stepping out of the roster for Clash. He was unable to attend the event. So neither team has their full-fledged roster, which makes this a lot more difficult to actually predict the results.
It makes it a little bit more difficult just because of the roster shuffling that's going to be happening. I feel like you have to give a little bit of an edge to Dynasty because their substitute is a direct substitute. Like, it's Tricky, who is a laner, stepping into the lane position, whereas HF guy on the side of Clash is stepping into a role that is not his primary role, as he's going to be filling in the jungle, if I'm not mistaken, which, side note there, it'll be his 3rd role played this season. So I
believe they call that doing a Keanu Nakoa.
Jack of all trades.
Yeah. But it's still, coming in at the highest level of competition in a role that may not be where you have the most amount of playtime at can be very, very difficult. And for that reason alone, I would give the edge to Dynasty here.
Yeah, one thing about Dynasty is Mowgli is the leader and the glue of that team, and he's had experience playing with Tricky, and Tricky has played with him. And if you look at the past season, right, they can get snowballed hard against specific comps, so their draft needs to be on point. But also, they can also throw a crazy lead. They had 9-0 against Salty Potatoes with a 10K gold lead, and then still lost the game. So Dynasty cannot do that today. Yeah. I believe that won't happen because Mowgli takes his training and his practice very seriously. So I think Dynasty will be more than prepared to handle Clash here.
Yeah, you can see Mowgli on your screen there, looking serious, like trying to build the motivation within the team, getting everybody ready to jump on into this series. Let's talk about the rosters a little bit here. We'll start with Dynasty themselves. Obviously, you already mentioned Mowgli. We mentioned Tricky being kind of this step-in, this substitute. But Tricky, he was a step-in back in London as well.
Yeah.
He had a phenomenal performance.
Yeah, he did have a phenomenal performance. But can he play like a lot of the melee heroes that PT Lamb was able to pull off? Or are they going to stick to more of the, Vox type of mobile heroes that Tricky likes to play? It'll be interesting to see how Mowgli will adjust the draft based on having Tricky on their squad here.
Yeah, as well. I'm interested to see how Riku Meza does today as well, but we'll talk about him a little bit more in just a few minutes. Let's talk about Clash, their opponents coming on in. Now, we already mentioned Agony is not going to be there on the scoreboard, unfortunately, but Masilis is, and Masilis, he had some phenomenal performances. We saw just a couple of seconds ago a replay of him getting basically a 1v3 on Idris. We saw multiple times where he would get highlight reels during the regular season.
Yeah, he's definitely a player that can pull out these highlight reel plays. But again, as we so often talk about in Europe, especially the consistency, can he do that regularly? Because if you pull it off once or twice in the series, that's great. But you need to be able to do it at least 3 times if you want to be playing on day 2.
You certainly do that, and that's what everyone's here for at the end of the day, to get to that international play. So Masilis, HF Guy, and Hell's Devil will be the Team Clash lineup. And one of the interesting things about Team Clash that I want to talk about coming into this series is because they're not playing with Agony. Agony was kind of it feels to me like he was the carrier of the team. Even though he wasn't playing the carry role, he was definitely the most influential player on the squad. But without him on the roster, I feel like people don't have a huge expectation of this squad, and that removes all pressure, right? There's no pressure on these players' shoulders to perform here, so that gives you this freeing aspect where you can come in from whatever angle you want.
In a sense, yes, but at the same time, like, a lot of the pressure at an event like this is also self-inflicted. Like, there's still going to be pressure on them because they want to perform. They want to be playing on day 2. They want to be this dark horse of the tournament. So there is still pressure, just not really as much pressure from the outside.
Well, we'll see whether that's going to affect them, whether they are going to be harsh on themselves coming on into this one. And I'm curious to see how they perform across the course of, the season and how they finish off the season. What with all the organization swaps and things, must have been a stressful season for them. But let's talk a little bit more about Dynasty and specifically about Riku Meza, because this guy has had a phenomenal season. He came in as basically an unknown factor, and across the course of the season, he has stepped up to a level that I don't think anyone was expecting.
Yeah, we see this is his first time on stage, and it's his chance to prove himself as a top jungler, not only in EU, but also in the Western Hemisphere. And with Riku, he had an amazing Scarf. I mean, his Scarf was able to carry. He had great Dragon's Breath ultimates and timed it at the right time. And his skill shotting on Scarf was just amazing. I mean, and I think that's what makes him so good. He's able to play a lot of skill shot heroes like Samuel, Scarf, and play them so proficiently, which allows him to help carry along with the laner, if it's either Tricky or PT Lamb.
And I just want to remind everyone as well quite how important these series are going to be for the European teams across the board, not just these two teams, but there are world spots on the line right here for all of the teams coming in. And North America has already won one of the world spots. There's going to be 2 spots available next season for these teams, but Europe only gets one of those spots. So this world spot here at this tournament is going to be so crucial for the European teams. And Mowgli, going to be one of the players that is desperately searching for this. Mowgli, one of the players that is an absolute veteran of the Vainglory scene and clear leader of his squad.
Yeah, has been around since the very beginning, knows what it's like to play on the live stage, knows what it's like to win on the live stage, has done so numerous times, and is trying to return to that top level of play. You know, when this team came together this season, we thought, okay, this will be an interesting experiment. Mowgli was really the only fully proven factor on this lineup, but they have definitely come together. And you know, we talked about it so many times where when they feel confident, the team just seems to perform so incredibly well.
Yeah, and with Mowgli and Hell's Devil, I think that's the key with both captains, because actually both tend to overextend and be overly aggressive to set up their carries for plays, but that will put them in a very, very tough position. So I think they have to be really careful, especially Mowgli when he was on Grace. The item builds are very interesting too. He rushed Aftershock instead of Echo, and they ended up losing that game because Aftershock didn't provide that much utility on a Captain Grace. So these little things that Mowgli tries could pay off in big dividends, or it could backfire and cause them to fall on the wayside.
Well, we'll have to see which direction that's going to go in. I have a question for you specifically, Sweet J, here, because we have an interesting dynamic on stage for Team Dynasty. You've got Mowgli, absolute veteran of the Vainglory scene, and alongside him is going to be Riku Meza, who has never played on stage before. Last season at the Unified in London, you had the exact same situation. You were the veteran on stage alongside these brand new players. What is that like on stage? Like, how do you calm a player down? How do you get them in the zone to play on stage?
Yeah, I think it comes down to believing in your team. That intention and that feeling comes through. And if your teammates know that you believe in them, they feel confident, they feel comfortable, they feel like they're in their element, so to speak. And that's the type of leadership Mowgli needs to give to Riku Meza, because he will have nerves, like Afro did in his very first game, and he will make mistakes. And how you treat your player when they make a mistake is going to determine the tone of the rest of the game. So as long as Mowgli is able to encourage him and bring him back and pick him up, then it's going to work really well. If Mowgli, starts raving or raging, then it's not going to work as well, because their confidence will be shattered.
Yeah. Now, another player that I want to talk about, we mentioned him already briefly, Tricky. All we've said about him is that he was also a sub in London and did a great job. But yesterday when we were talking to this team, Tricky, from my experience, was easily the most outspoken of the squad. And he seemed like the spokesperson despite being a substitute. How do you feel that's going to affect the playstyle here of Dynasty? Do you think that everything's going to be turned on its head?
Well, it was actually something that he talked to us about. He said, when I play with this team, I feel like our mechanics are better. But what, I'm able to be more communicative than what we normally have. Normally when it's PT Limited, everyone is talking. But when I'm in, it's just me, because I drown out the rest of my teammates because he talks so much. But that can be actually a really big bonus to a team. If instead of having just 3 voices at once, getting that one clear voice cutting above the rest to be able to make those calls.
Yeah, I was able to, when we were in London, I actually had a bus ride with Tricky all the way to the airport, and we had a great time. And Tricky has such a great personality. He's so confident. And I remember watching the games where he's like, Tricky is unleashed. I remember those games on Fox. He just went crazy, went ham, and just carried his team. In other games, he would play like he was a hermit, and is really passive and not confident. So I feel like if he's unleashing himself today on stage, along with Mowgli's leadership, they're going to help Riku also channel that energy, and then Dynasty can really take it away. So it's going to be really how the team feels going into this and their mental state.
And also how much preparation they've done in the lead up to this event, like how soon they knew that they were going to have to do these roster changes. Now, don't forget, guys, at home, that we do have a couple of competitions going on here today. Obviously, we already mentioned the skin giveaway, but there's also an ice giveaway going on. Well, it's not so much a giveaway, you have to work for this one. 1,000 ice is on the line, and we want you guys at home that are interested in numbers, interested in statistics, to give us your best statistic from this event. You can get online, use the API, and pull the stats from the server itself. And we want to see some interesting statistics, not just the standard things that we see like KDA, but we want to see you really come off the wall with this one and give us some graphics, give us some infographics. We want to see all kinds of stuff. So hashtag Vainglory Live Stats on Twitter, and get involved with Mad Glory as well. They're the ones helping us run this tournament and run this event in general. So thank you very much to Mad Glory, and everybody get online and get involved on that one. Now, we have had a minor audio issue. That's why we've been kind of filling some time a little bit, but draft is just about to begin. So let's start to bring the conversation around to that. We've seen a very different set of drafts here today than what we saw in the regular season. Is that the standard that we expect to see across the course of this tournament? Or were there some picks that you expected to see that we didn't? Or was there stuff that we saw that we weren't really anticipating?
Yeah, we've seen pretty much the meta draft. I think the only thing that was different we saw was definitely the Finn coming out, and also Fortress with double weapon. That was a very interesting draft as well.
I was also very surprised at the lack of heavy focus on Grace. Like, it still blows my mind, but we are going to be getting our first Idris of the tournament, as finally it just not banned in the first rotation and grabbed immediately there by Clash.
Interestingly, first ban going to be the Fox coming out from Dynasty. Not something that you expect to see, but then the Lyra first pick kind of explains it.
Yeah, they didn't want to have to deal with the Vox. You obviously can go Poison Shiv, can do a lot of different things. It's also just not really a pick that was played a ton by the side of Dynasty. They played it once all season long, despite it being the most popular carry in the game throughout the entire regular season. Idris for Clash, though, I do want to revisit this pick up a bit. This is one of their most frequently played heroes. They played him 11 times in the regular season. Mixed success, as they had, mixed success all season long.
Mercedes was,
there is definitely comfort there.
And Mercedes was known for his Idris. And Idris and Grace,
oh,
that is such
so
a strong combo. So I was wondering why Dynasty did not ban Grace there, because that's really risky. Because you have an Idris that wants to go in if it's a weapon power. Even a CP Idris will want to dive once he gets his stacks and pokes. And then Grace is going to basically heal him up with the Divine Intervention. So now Dynasty has to pick something that counters that type of dive potential. So Sky is normally really good into a Grace, but they can also do Samuel with Lyra and Snowball the early game. That could also work really well for the side of Dynasty here. So Black Feather Samuel could potentially come in, or they could go with Sky. Let's see what Dynasty will end up picking.
Yeah, then they, like you said, they need some kind of anti-dive, because we've gone blue in the face talking about how strong Idris and Grace are as a combo, because you have that big heal to come through once he dives in. So Samuel is going to be, Samuel is typically considered that anti-dive. You kite a lot with the Samuel Lyra, but there's the
We mentioned
this is
dive.
the 2.6 extremely meta composition that was just tearing it up the last couple weeks of Vainglory 8.
I feel like the Clash composition is like the epitome of what was good at the end of 2.6, what was good at the end of that season. Incredibly powerful dive. This is likely going to be the CP Idris that we've started to see a lot more on the 2.7 patch. Update, sorry. How are we feeling about these compositions? Like, to me, it looks like Clash has quite an edge here, but the compositions definitely play into one another.
If you just look at compositionally, forget about who's playing what, who's substituting where, just purely compositionally, Clash just destroyed this draft. They have won this draft cleanly, and as long as they play the way that this composition can be played, they should have a very clean victory.
Yeah, this is my notes about Dynasty, is they tend to throw the draft and give teams a really OP combination and just make their lives a little harder. And if Clash executes this combo properly, they can easily win this game and snowball it.
All right, well, we'll see whether that can come to pass here as we head on into this second game of this tournament. It's time to head up over to the caster desk and get into the game.
That's right, we are up here at the caster desk. We are hype. I'm here with Denominate, his first live cast here at a championship. How you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty excited, and Clash has really been one of those teams for me that I've had my eye on all season long. They really have that potential to compete with the best when they bring their A game. But it's going to be about which Clash are we going to see today.
Oh, that is truth. You bring the truth like nobody else. Clash, a very fun draft here, and it looks like we're getting loaded into the fold. And this is going to be really fun. Kroll coming out with the Grace and the Idris. It kind of threw it for a loop. I mean, we saw the Idris come out with the Grace, and there's power right there. But the Kroll kind of flipped it on its head.
Well, and the Grace is really good into a Krull, so it's nice that they got the Krull on the same side. And in this 2.7, we actually have a really interesting shift in meta from the normal weapon lane situation that we've been in. And now, so this is very likely going to be a Crystal Idris in the lane with that kind of tanky weapon, be in your face, annoying nuisance Krull. There's a lot of potential for this Idris to ramp up that Broken Myth and really take over a fight.
There's a lot of potential, a lot of mobility. You know, it's not the same kind of mobility. You don't have that instantaneous route step. But I'm excited looking on the other side. Dynasty. You know, this is a team that I feel like when they come in, they play their A game. They can take down almost any opponent. Do you think they have a draft here where they can do it?
I do think Clash has the more favorable, easy-to-win draft. I do think if Mowgli is able to really shine here on this Lyra with the Bright Bulwark timing, there is a lot of potential for the game to turn around very quickly for Dynasty.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Good Bright Bulwarks, they're going to be so important. We're going to have some fights starting right off the bat. We are into the fold, and it's going to be Mercedes up in the lane, of course, with that Idris. Early on, Hell's Devil playing games with Mowgli. Now, Hell's Devil, he has to prove himself. Mowgli, he's a three-time European champion. He knows what he's doing here.
Yeah, he absolutely does, and you know, like we said, these are very interesting drafts on both sides. The Samuel can be very powerful when coming to the lane, applying that siege that a Krull just really can't do.
All right, a little bit of a poke up in the lane, on point connecting. Malice and Verdict, you have to be so careful at this point. Now, Mercedes, he wants to stay in the lane as long as possible, but at this point, moving on the backside, HF Guy's there, he's empowered. Trikamez is in the bush. I don't know if they can actually find the kill. Tricky should be able to get that. Can they find the kill? There you go. Your first blood, a minute and a half into this one. Very, very strong start.
Yeah, really good start for Clash. They do have the Krull that is a little bit more of a late game hero, but we know that Samuel can scale really out of control, and it was nice to see Clash be able to turn that around after a really aggressive push coming out of Rukumeza, forcing Mercedes way behind the turn.
Yeah, I think the beautiful thing there was seeing the rotation out of Clash. A lot of times, if you can catch your opponent off guard, you're 9 times out of 10 you're going to take that fight.
Yeah, you absolutely are, and that Krull engaging from the bush, those shadows empower me, that slow coming through, really allowed him a lot of crowd control, getting that slow and allowing HF Guy to ramp up those the Spectral Sight Smacks. And, you know, he was able to clean up the kill on the end of it. It did go over to Hell's Devil, though, so that will be a little bit faster of a fountain, but a carry did not get that bonus gold.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point as well. Now, it looks like we have a little bit of action here in lane. Tricky, poking on Mercedes, just continuously applying that wrath. He's got the Book of Eulogy, so he can take some damage, but then go ahead and last it and heal himself right back up. Mercedes not having, I mean, he has the book, but he's not able to do so himself. You see 3 players from each team up in this lane right now. Mercedes just on the back foot. They're forcing Hell's Devil. Well, it looked like Hell's Devil was actually going to pour it back. Mercedes so low. Hell's Devil, he might drop here. Tricky wants it. The Holy Nova will dissuade them from going in for the kill. HF Guy doing his best to buy some time. This is the worst situation. You want to port back, but they know you're porting. So now they're going to go into your jungle.
They are going to make a good rotation through the jungle, and Samuel does clean out jungle very fast. Krull is coming down, though. I don't think he's going to have the time to stop anything here, though.
Well, HF Guy, he's on to Rikumeza. Rikumeza low on the energy, but he has that Corrupted Genius. He's going to move back. Mowgli doing his best. Oh, big Spectral Smite! Hell's Devil's in there with that. Can he find the slow? Felt like it might be enough. Rikumeza actually getting out. That Corrupted Genius is actually so strong.
It absolutely is, especially as you get that crystal power ramped up. But man, Clash is not looking to let up the aggression here, knowing Rikumeza is so low.
Yeah, and why would they? They're moving in. Mowgli has heals, but he is down. He has no more energy. This is forcing Rikumeza back, and this is going to be Hell's Devil and HF Guy taking the backs pretty much for free here.
Yeah, and Clash is looking really good here. You know, we talked about it at the beginning, that this is a team that when they bring their A game, they can compete with many of these teams that are much higher seeding in this tournament. And this is really a good view of Clash we're getting here. They're being very aggressive when they need to, and you know, they really haven't lost out on anything.
Yeah, it's really interesting. When this team shows up, it's really hard to tell them apart from any of the top teams that are in the Vainglory. Now, right now, Clash has a bit of momentum. They're building a small net worth advantage for themselves. We're 4 minutes in here, and a lot of action across the map. Rikamez and Mowgli holding down that mustache brush there, forcing Hell's Devil around up into the lane. Now, they know that they have HF Guy alone in the jungle. Let's see what they actually choose to do here.
It does look like Rukameza is going to stay up here in the lane. Again, Samuel's very good at coming in and forcing that lane pressure, especially against a melee hero. But now that Mercilli's has that divergent path unlocked, he does have those ranged attacks, and he's a little bit safer farming now.
I mean, that is a huge advantage for him, right? Like, just getting that range advantage, that's a huge power spike. It'll make it much easier for him to hang out up in that lane. And as far as your prediction of how the lane would work out, is it kind of playing to the way you expected?
I do think Blackfeather and Idris in the first few minutes have a very close early game. I think as that divergent path comes on, Mercilli's is going to have a much easier time farming. He's going to be able to force Tricky back just due to that range. But again, Samuel is going to be huge in these team fights. Here we go.
Oh, Shadows Empowered. HF Guy, though, he is moving in. There's a lot of damage. Spectral Smite almost dropping Rikumeza, but he stays alive through it. That was a lot of resources committed right there to try and take down HF Guy, just hanging out in the top rush, though. He's doing an incredible job. Hell's Devil sitting there on that fountain. They have a big advantage just being able to have that fountain when it was forced out of Mowgli.
Yeah, they absolutely do, and the way that the draft ended up working out for Clash, this is a team that normally runs a very siege-heavy composition, and we're not seeing them do that this game. We're seeing them pull out Hoffa with this dive
big stun! They have the damage and they have the kill! Can they find more, though? The Drifting Dart, Hell's Devil jumps in there. He's gonna just apply a little bit of pressure. Rikumez, look at the chakram damage coming out!
Yeah, this Crystal Idris can do a huge amount of damage, especially onto a Samuel who is not going to build very much defense through any part of this game. He might close out with an Aegis, but, you know, again, this is Clash, a team that's really made their way here by playing siege comps, and they're playing this really heavy dive versus a composition that Dynasty normally would play, and is instead playing the siege kind of more siege composition. So it's kind of interesting to see the teams play each other's game here.
Yeah, I mean, not only that, I mean, but if you also think about it, how we've talked about NA versus EU play styles, you know, North America, everybody says it's aggression, it's early game right here. I'm seeing a lot of that out of Clash.
We are seeing that a lot out of Clash for sure, and this is actually one of the things that we've talked about here at the beginning of this tournament, right, when we were getting into everything, is that these Crystal Mages are really starting to make their way into the meta, and Mercilli's on this Idris is looking pretty good so far. Looking
really good now. Tricky just continuing to try and find that farm, get his levels. We know Blackfeather wants to get that level 8. He wants to get that on-point overdriven, and he's getting closer and closer as the seconds tick by here.
Yeah, he's getting closer and closer, but looking over at the CS, we do have a distinct advantage forming already for the side of Clash. Mercilli's approaching 80 CS to Tricky, just barely over 60 at this point, and that's that 1.5k gold lead we have here.
Yeah, Hell's Devil once again jumping and being the front line for his team, doing such a great job. HF Guy's been hanging out in the lane for quite a while. The flares were coming out of Dynasty, revealing the fact that the Kroll was there. He had to respect it from him. Hellstar's gonna come out, catches him with the boomerang, but it's blocked off. Tricky, a great job to reposition and get himself backwards there. That was a kill for sure if that stun hits.
Yeah, it was a kill for sure if that stun hit, but Tricky actually burned a lot of his own resources trying to get out. The reflex block as well as a charge of Rose offensive, but Rikumez is coming in looking for some damage here.
Yeah, the Drifting Dark, he's throwing the Malice Burst. HF Guy's there though, he's gonna move in. Dead Man's Rush to jump in. The Benediction, Hell's Devil. He wants to find that Holy Nova, trying to get in the position. Rikumez, the shock, I'm taking him down low. There's your Holy Nova, but that is a nice Rose offensive to dodge it off, and at the end, nobody goes down. That was very aggressive though.
That was a lot of back and forth aggression from both sides, but Tricky really used his kit to his advantage there. He didn't get stunned up by anything due to those charges of Rose offensive. And here we go again. The aggression's
once again, they are underneath the turret right here. HF Guy trying to make the plays. I don't know if he can find the kill. Tricky though, he finds the on point. The turret has the damage and they found the kill. Dynasty are on the board, potentially looking for more. Rikumez does not have his Drifting Dark though. That's kind of what really flops him up in these fights.
It definitely is, but now there's a huge opportunity. With Rikumez so healthy, they could push the lane up, but instead it looks like they're going to rotate down and try to take away about a half rotation out of this Skrull's jungle. So just trying to find a little bit, as it has been Clash really dominating this game with the aggression so far. And, you know, this is now Dynasty looking to even things up.
I mean, how do you like that? Instead of just keeping up in the lane, applying pressure, maybe getting some chip damage on the turret, they drop down, they take the front half. So it seems like a pretty smart play.
It does seem like a pretty smart play. Will
Tricky actually
be able
going
to
for
find
Mercedes.
though?
On point. He has the Shimmer Strike. He's right back under the turret. He gets out of there. That was a close call.
That was very close and very well timed. Shimmer Strike out of Mercedes there is going to get him out of danger, but he's forced to recall, and now we're in a situation where Dynasty is all in the lane again, very, very healthy, and Kroll is not good at clearing out wave.
Lyra Samuel, a combination we've seen so many times. The regeneration is incredibly strong. Hell's Devil jumping in here once again, being that front line for his team. Mercedes is back from the base. Now, let's just go ahead and clear out these lane minions as fast as possible. And it kind of stalled out Dynasty's aggression. From Hell's Heart, blocked off. Rikum has a very nice job.
Yeah, it was a good Crucible coming out of Mowgli there, knowing that his teammate did not have a reflex block available, didn't want to see that Samuel get jumped on off the back of that almost full-length Kroll stun there, which would have been really game-changing, and now it's just both teams kind of returning to some farm here. Samuel's staying in the lane. Will they be able to do anything off the back of Humanist?
We'll see if they actually can. You know, my question to you, Denoni, is they're blocked a few of these from Hell's Hearts out of our Kroll here, HF Guy's Kroll. Is this more of Dynasty reacting very well, or is this should he be a little more patient potentially with these ultimates?
It could come out both ways. Now the nice thing about the Kroll is you can use that sword to either bait out or block early.
Right.
For example, the Crucible's down here, but so is this turret, Humanist.
Yeah, turret's gonna go down as Dynasty just a little bit out of position there.
A little bit. They, you know, that turret was very low, and you know, obviously this Idris is able to clear wave very efficiently with those chakrams and the crystal power basic attacks coming through this divergent path. And now Hell's Devil's forced to come here into the lane and try to hold this off.
Yeah, he's doing a very good job. Holy Nova's going to be blocked off there. Tricky landing on point, just trying to get his last hit. Still regening up every time he gets it. Mercedes, pretty squishy. They don't want to dive onto the turret. Just it doesn't feel like with the Malice and Vertus are stacking up a lot of damage. Fine intervention keeps them alive. They blocked it from Hell's Heart. HF Guy, he's in on the Lyra Mowgli, though, doing a great job to keep his team alive. Shimmer Strike, and right back out underneath the turret. Can they find the damage? The Chakrams not connecting as well as they would have liked. And at the end, you see this damage spreading out here. Mercedes, he's doing a good job to apply damage, but at the same time, they're trading at the on-point landing. If Tricky jumps, that is so dangerous. Benediction and HF Guys there. Tricky taking a lot of damage. Spectral Spite almost dropping him down here. At the end, they all stay alive.
This has been the story of these fights so far. We're looking at the kills, Humanist. It's only 1-2, but it is not because teams have not been aggressive. Both teams have been really capitalizing on opportunities to push the other in. It's just the fights have been so even, they're getting out where everybody is low, and it's really such a close game here at this point. We're almost 12 minutes in the game. Only 1,000 gold stands between these teams, and a majority of that is the first turret is now down for Dynasty. That is an objective advantage that we have for Clash.
I mean, there's a lot of survivability, a lot of durability on both of these teams. To me, it almost feels kind of equal when I look at all of the abilities they have. How do you feel about it?
I definitely think that if Clash is able to get a good hard execution with the Grace and the Kroll, they're able to have a lot of lockdown potential. You know, the same can't be said about the side of Dynasty, but man, will they fight up to this?
Yeah, well, that's going to be going over, secured by Kroll, so a great job by Clash to grab that gold payout. Now, they're up 2-1, but if you look at the overall net worth, it's really not that huge of a lead. I mean, they've taken a turret, they've gotten a gold miner, but how is this game still so close?
Well, it's just been efficient farming coming out of the side of Dynasty. Good rotations, good ambient gold sharing, because we do obviously have a slight lead from Mercedes in the lane, and the only gold advantage that we have is that turret and that gold mine, so it just shows how even these teams are right now. It's just been Clash finding a little bit better of a trade.
Well, another from Hell's Heart blocked off. HF Guy moving in, but Mowgli, I mean, we talked about how talented Mowgli is. He's blocked almost every single one of these so far. This is really impressive.
Yeah, and it makes it really easy for Rukameza to commit to damage, but here comes the damage on the
coming
turret.
out. The turret dropping low. Can Clash defend this? Are they going to jump in for the engage here? Well, this is Dynasty, maybe potentially hiding back. The pound will come out of Clash, but they're going to drop Mercedes. He didn't see that damage coming. Now Tricky moving back with a boost. HF Guy dropped off, double on point landing. Holy Nova finds 2 stun, but HF Guy will be dropping here. It looks like they're going to be able to grab the ace and the turret as well. They don't lose anybody. Dynasty with a massive win.
Yeah, they pick up a massive ace there, which is going to very likely give them the second turret as well as the entire jungle.
Wow.
Out of Clash. So just like that, a game that was so even is now looking like Dynasty could really take an advantage here very quickly. All right, well, as we go through this team fight, we see Mercilli's was dropped very, very low and taken out of the fight very, very quickly. And Kroll is just not good at the team fight damage when he is left alone. Hell's Devil pulls out a good stun there, but the aggression coming out of Dynasty was able to push through. They find the ace, they find the damage on the turret. And what a clean play there coming out of a huge engagement out of Mowgli.
Very clean play indeed. And like you said, I mean, Hell's Devil, it felt with that Holy Nova like he was disrupting that engagement. Like maybe you're going to lose one, you're probably not going to lose two, but the fact that Dynasty know what they can do there is very, very good for them. Tricky, the Rose defensive backwards, gets him out of harm's way. Mowgli even throwing out that arcane passage. They're just kind of disrupting the engagement out of Clash.
They absolutely are. And like you said, Mowgli's been absolutely amazing at blocking the From Hell's Heart coming out of Kroll. Hell's Devil taking a lot of damage.
A lot of damage. This is Tricky, though. He is on to Mercilli's. He's trading. He's got the shotgun, though. Tricky stacking up the damage, and he's able to take him down. Can Dynasty find more? Can they keep Tricky alive? Yes, they can. He's got one. He's got two. He's got three. Tricky is unleashed, and Dynasty have flipped this game on its head.
Yeah, after finding that one really clean fight for them, I definitely think it was a good motivational boost for the side of Dynasty. And just like that, they're going to push this wave up into turret and very likely turn that aggression onto the Kraken as we get into another bit of a replay here. As we can see, Hell's Devil takes a lot of damage very early on in that fight. He's forced back, while the whole time Tricky's on the back line taking down Mercilli's in that 1v1. He's able to clean it up before the Divine Intervention does come through out of Hell's Devil. And just like that, 1, 2, 3, Tricky cleans up an ace for himself.
Oh, that was beautiful to watch. Now, it feels like as we're seeing this game progress right here, that Tricky and Dynasty have a very clear sense of what they need to do in these fights. It's always locking onto Mercilli's, locking onto this Idris, taking him down. They're not allowing him to just hang back and apply damage.
Yeah, and that's really attributed to how much damage that Tricky has built for himself. He's going into a 4th offensive item here, and Mercilli's is only sitting on a tier 2 armor right now, as well as only has 3 offensive items built. Now with the Kraken marching down the lane, this turret taking so much chip damage, if Dynasty can find a clean fight here, they could find game number 1.
They definitely can. Now moving forward, the choke point turret is down. Mowgli, Tricky, Riku, Meza looking to apply the pressure. Hell's Devil, he's then trying to be that strong front side for his team. A double on point landing coming out of Tricky. They're trying to hang back but apply damage at the same time. That's the from Hell's card. Is it going to come back and connect? No! They're dropping HF guy low. Hell's Devil just forced to use Divine Intervention to keep his teammates alive. The Kraken's still pretty healthy. Are Dynasty going to hang around and try to end this one here? It's dropping low. Hell's Devil's still alive. Mercilli's HF guy doing their best. And with the Kraken dropping, it looks like this should be Dynasty's cue to get out of here. They're hanging around. It looks like that's going to be the disengage.
Yeah, it is going to be a good Imperial Sigil on all 3 members to help get that speed boost, health top off their health. They're going to rotate now. Took a little bit out of the jungle of Clash. And just like that, a game that was looking really heavily in favor of Clash off of just a few team fights. That is now Dynasty forcing Clash all the way into a quarter health turret off of 1 Kraken push, Humanist. And, you know, this has really been Dynasty proving that they are just a little bit tighter knit when it comes to the team fights here. And again, we have a sub on both teams, but Tricky, you know, very high-skilled player filling in for a position that he is his main position.
Absolutely.
It's just looking a little better for Dynasty right now.
I mean, not only that, you do have the captain Mowgli here. You know, he is the leader of this team. Whether Tricky is the most vocal at the end of the day, they have a lot of great input into these team fights, when to engage, what target to go on, and they're just a little more decisive in this fight, playing out very well for them here.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, like we mentioned at the beginning of this, is that you know, when Tricky does play on this team, it is a little less of the team communication. It is more of him kind of taking over that shout calling role. And these past couple fights have looked absolutely great for that. I mean, it's been Tricky. Very committed to a fight, finding damage on Mercilli's, and they're able to clean up a very clean ace off the back of it. It's only one more fight for Dynasty. We could see them close out this game.
They could definitely close this game out. Now, as I was looking on that last engagement, Tricky, he's on point, just kind of pokes, and 3 breaking point stacks, just within a half of a second. It is incredible how fast he is stacking up breaking points. Now, if he can actually get on target, he could blow one of these Clash members. Clash definitely have the potential to do the same in reverse. I mean, it's all about, can they find that stun? Like HF guy, I think he's thrown some pretty nice stuns. He was out of vision. It's just the reaction speed coming out of Mowgli's been insane.
Well, Mowgli's blocked a couple point blank from Hell's Hearts too, and we know how difficult that can be to do. And Tricky with a good escape over the wall here is able to clean up this farm, and that is going to be now an Eve of Harvest completed for this Samuel Rukumeza, who now has a reflex block of his own. Dynasty Gaming, all infused here, really could look to find a fight, and Rikumeza's gonna get it down.
They block another from Hell's Heart. Can they find the fight? The right bulwark as down. They want to find the fight here. Clash has to win this fight. The on point. Tricky's there. He's got breaking point stacks building up. They're able to take down Versilies. Now the rest of Clash has to make a miracle play. Hell's Devil and HF Guy doing their best. They have the Spectral Smite stacks. Oh! HF Guy! He's got a double! Dead Man's Russian! He's on to Rikumeza! HF Guy! Can he do it? He's on a nice edge! He needed the miracle! They're making the plays! He's waiting for the cooldowns moving forward! Dead Man's Rush on the target! Chops him down! They've done it! Clash finds the ace!
Clash finds the ace, and with Kroll being the only one alive, he can go ahead and start up this Kraken pretty easily. Only 10 seconds till Versilies is back on the fold. There is some good vision down here by Mowgli. Getting into this replay, though, we'll have to look at this fight. The good Hell's Heart block by Mowgli. Rikumeza does throw out the Oblivion. It does miss. The good Divine Intervention comes through, gets Versilies up as Tricky is dropped very low. The double Divine Intervention comes through, but it's just enough for Hell's Devil and HF Guy to find the damage, to clean up the kills, and then off the back of that play, it is Hell's Devil chasing down Rikumeza for the ace.
You know, I mentioned Tricky's breaking point. Oh, we're gonna have a contested Kraken. That actually goes to Clash. They find the stun onto Mowgli. Mowgli, he doesn't have his ultimate. Mowgli can't get out of here. They should find the kill. War Transy's just inching out. Shimmer Strike Board off the top of that. Finds the mobility, finds the kill. Now Clash have a Kraken. They have the advantage. They have some momentum here building up to nominate. What can they achieve off of this push?
They can achieve a huge amount off this push as they're taking this turret down before the Kraken's even here. Tricky is coming in.
Tricky's in there. He is on the target. They've disrupted him. Tricky, though, he's gone too deep. Tricky is down. Clash has found another kill. They can probably take Rikumez down. This is a Samuel. He's not incredibly mobile. A double kill. Mercedes has got it. The Broken Myth building up, and Clash are moving in. 40 seconds, 35 seconds on Rikumez. Choke point turret is down to nominate. What's happening?
This Kraken is still very, very healthy, and Tricky and Rikumeza are down for another 20 and 25 seconds respectively. One turret now stands between Clash and Victor
They're going to close this game out! Oh my goodness! I don't know if Dynasty imploded or if Clash just put on their Superman capes and came through in a matter of minutes, maybe a minute and a half, when it felt like they were on their back foot with one chance to win this game. They turned it around. Phenomenal. This is why you can never count this team out.
You absolutely can't, and we talked about it. Clash is really that team that can't compete with the best when they pick their clean fights. So Humanist, that is actually Clash with you know, a game that was looking on the back foot. They take it.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be hard for Dynasty as well. Now, I'm excited to hear from our analysts to break this one down for us. We'll go and throw it over to Munchables at the desk.
Water. You can see the emotions across the board there on all 6 of those players' faces. Clash over the moon with a victory like that. And you can't blame them because, you know, we were talking during that game saying, you know, with a composition like that, you should not be losing. And then as that conversation happens, boom, flipped on its head, and suddenly Clash out of nowhere managed to win it.
2 fights was all it took. 2 fights, one to stall the game out just a little bit longer, and one to get the Kraken and win the game. Absolutely unbelievable. I mean, I do want to start this off by talking about how well Dynasty played this game throughout the majority of it, because this was the kind of game that they should not have been in this game.
It goes back to what we said right at the start, right?
Yeah.
Dynasty, once they get to the late game, they struggle with decision making.
And I called it. I mean, they need to fix that. They did it in the past BG8. They would get a crazy lead and just throw in late game, lose 2 critical fights, and the game then is out of their hands. So they have to fix it. They cannot let that happen. They were playing so well in the beginning. They were snowballing it. 4,000K gold lead. They played the Lyra Samuel so well. Cruel Grace did not win the jungle. They only had 1 CS advantage in the early game, and it wasn't working well for Clash in the early and mid game.
So let's rewind and go from the start of the game here, because, you know, as you rightly say, Dynasty start things off incredibly strong.
Yeah, this was a composition that they should not have had the lead that they did. Mowgli was playing out of his mind with reflex blocks. There was only a single from Hell's Heart that connected for a stun throughout almost the entirety of this game. He was blocking every single one of them, and that's a very difficult ability to block. It has a very short throw time if it's thrown from anywhere close. And so Mowgli being able to block those was absolutely crucial to allowing then Tricky to dive onto the backline and just blow up Mercilli's before anything could happen.
Yeah, and I think that is a key interaction that we saw in those early fights was Tricky. It was so difficult for Mercilli's to deal with him. Every single time they got into a fight, Tricky was right there on top of him.
Yeah, and I love his build. Sword Blade, Tension Bow, Shiv, Breaking Point. That was a beautiful Black Feather. It has like 275 weapon power with 20% weapon ratio. The Feint of Heart does like 70% plus missing health damage. I mean, amazing build. And as soon as he got on CP Idris, he couldn't even survive with double intervention. It was crazy. Well, how well Tricky played Black Feather.
Yeah, and we saw Black Feathers earlier today not have the same that level of success because they were going for the more sustained focus builds, you know, getting the Serpent's Mask and the Poison Shiv. And while there is a place for that build, you just don't have enough damage if you're trying to find fights early on. They wanted the fights early on, so they went for the damage and were able to make it work. It was really well played throughout the vast majority of this game up until the very end.
Yeah, and then towards the later stages of the game, everything started to go a little bit skew-whiff for the side of Dynasty. Suddenly, Clash managed to come into a world of their own. And, you know, it was the point at which they started to come in. It looked like the game was already over. The Kraken was in the base, the Vein Crystal turrets were going down, and then suddenly they managed to flip things on its head.
There's a famous quote in esports of, up until they lose the game, they're winning. And that is, I mean, I feel like that embodies
Classic
this Dynasty
Dignitas.
team, like, so heavily. Like, that's exactly what we just saw here. Up until they lost the game, they were winning. And then all of a sudden,
I mean,
it just collapsed.
if we analyze what happened, though, it's because, like, again, like Mowgli at the Kraken pit, he overextended, put himself out of position, wasted Fountain, and then they killed him. And then Tricky and Riku, I don't know why they would engage in a 2v3, but this was a crazy fight here. I mean, HF guy just carrying on this Cruel, getting 3 kills, and this is why Cruel is really strong in this meta and will be hotly contested. You know, if players know how to play him along with Grace.
This bit was so close to heartbreaking for HF guy. He's desperately trying to catch Riku and almost like loses to the Frostburn here.
Yeah, finally Ditch throws out the Dead Man's Rush, just barely gets in range. Obviously the Crystal Sentry was going to be helping him out regardless, but able to get the kill, start the Kraken, and then end the game with this push.
Like, why are you engaging? It's 2v3. There's no reason to engage here. They really cost them. So decision making in a late game is everything. One bad decision will cost you the team fight and eventually a game. But this cost him 2 team fights with the Kraken. Giving them an ace is a really bad position to put yourself in.
So there's a very important conversation to bring up off the back of that fight specifically is, in a situation like that, when you're Dynasty, you're so far ahead and then everything's flipped on your head, and then you make a kind of a ridiculous call like that to go 2v3, surely you have to bring up the conversation of like kind of team morale at that stage. Surely there's a little bit of kind of, I don't want to say tilt, but you know, how much are they going to be able to hold themselves together coming into game 2? The draft is underway, so let's start to talk about these picks, but definitely, guys at home, keep your eyes on Dynasty. Their decision-making towards the late game. Catherine going to be the first lock-in. Certainly a good start for Clash.
Yeah, and now with Lance being open, Grace being open, I think Dynasty will pick up the Grace here. Oh, there goes Lance. EU is liking the Lance here, so I need to change up my weather forecast, so to speak, right? So Grace is up, but I don't think the team could play a Grace jungle potentially with a Catherine or Lance here. So I don't think Dynasty will ban the Grace. They'll probably ban a carry that they don't want Clash to play. So Black Feather will be taken away. He's been very popular in this meta right now, in EU at least.
Yeah, and the Lance obviously has been extremely popular thus far today, has been having a lot of priority on it. It's a pick that, surprisingly enough, Dynasty didn't play it once all season long. They were on that very heavy Arden kick that a lot of European teams were on, so this will be our first look at Mowgli on a Lance in quite some time, assuming it does end up in the captain position. It is something that can get flexed, but I don't feel like
that's
it's
a classic
something...
dog potato more than anything else.
Yeah.
So Clash is banning Scarf here. Looks like they're basically banning Riku Meza's hero pool, looks like. They don't want Riku on this Scarf, so they ban it again a second game here.
All right, we saw this composition last series. The Lance Celeste combo was absolutely terrifying in the hands of G2. Is it this combo specifically, or was that a G2 thing? Are we expecting the same level of power out of these two picks?
It's that we talked about a little bit last series as well, with the Lance being able to set up the Celeste so well. If you can just keep someone in one position, allows the core collapse to come through, just locks them down for so long, allows the Celeste to build up a couple of stacks, and they're still stuck in one place, so then the Solar Storm comes through with a few broken mid stacks and just deletes a target. So interesting to see the Kestrel get picked up into this duo, because that was what it was picked generally against, was his counter at Kestrel.
CP Kestrel is just really dominant right now in the meta. That's why we see Kestrel being banned or picked in the first phase of the ban draft phase. So with CP Kestrel, to pick a weapon laner, so Vox makes a lot of sense because of the Lance, being able to move around and dodge skill shots from Lance and Celeste. So now they have Crow open, they have Glaive open, they have Grumpjaw open. There's a lot of heroes they can play, or even, honestly, Taka would be great against a CP Kestrel here. If played well, he can dodge the Catherine stun with his Chitin if he times it properly. So let's see if they're going to pull that out, or they're going to go with a Glaive or something different here.
Yeah, we'll have to see where they do choose to go with this one. You'd anticipate it being a weapon jungle, and I mean, as you rightly said before, Bacon, there's still the possibility of that Lance being the weapon jungler and going for a different captain. Things like the Grace are still available. Grace, or again, Arden, which was so incredibly popular for the side of Dynasty during the regular season. Their most played hero by a long shot, 14 games on the Arden. We haven't seen too much focus on, but it's going to be a Krull. So this is a huge combo. We saw this in actually other tournaments like VIS Pro. There was a lot of teams running similar things with the Lance, Krull, and then just any CP carry. And the key thing is those 3 stuns, or the 3 forms of CC being chained together and just locking someone in place. We'll see whether they can get onto the targets, because both Kestrel and Fox can be very slippery targets to try and get onto. Yeah, they can, but if Crow gets his Shadows Empower Me heroic perk onto that hero, they'll be slowed. And then Lance can land his root, then Celeste can land the core collapse, and then that person will probably be dead. So as long as they reflex block properly and avoid the CC, then I think Clash has a chance, but I really like Dynasty's draft right here. All right, well, we'll see whether Dynasty can even up this series. We'll see whether they can keep team morale in check. It's time to get on into the second game of this series. We'll see whether Clash can start to run away with things. Can they get a second game on the board? Let's pass it over to Denominate and Humanist.
Well, thank you very much, Munchables. And that's right, game 1 was intense. It came down to the last fight, came down to the wire. I'm really excited to see a second Krull here in game 2. Denominate, how are you liking these drafts?
I really like both these drafts. I'm excited to see the Catherine finally make it through a draft here. Those buffs to Echo are going to make her kind of a nightmare going into this game.
I mean, depending how you build this Catherine, it is really hard to block all of the CC that can come out of this hero. Now, we see strong drafts on both sides. A lot of lockdown. Our analysts talked about it. I mean, the Krull can provide a slow, also the stun. You got the core collapse, impales, get in walls. That's a lot of CC to try and avoid. But we are into the game right now, and we are ready to go. Now, we're going to see Mowgli actually playing games with Hell's Devil down here. Hell's Devil finding a stun, just getting some stacks up early on, kind of zoning Mowgli out. And HF guy moving down, getting a couple attacks, one shots coming through. Just let Mowgli know, hey, yo, this is our jungle. Get out of here, Mowgli. You can steal that. Impale coming up a little bit short. He actually burned a flare for that as well. A second stun. More Captain of the Guard stacks for Hell's Devil. That's something I want to keep my eyes on here for this Catherine.
Yeah, he's 1 minute into the game with 3 stacks already, so that is absolutely huge for them. Obviously, Catherine going to be that tanky frontline as the game goes on, but Riku Meza might be able to find an aggressive possession here. Not quite able to get through. That Krull and Lance combination will be very deadly as the game goes on. But obviously, you know, we discussed the Catherine with the Echo buffs here in this 2.7 patch. That is a 15-second lower cooldown now on that item that was already making Catherine so strong before. I mean,
it's so incredibly strong. What's really cool is the fact that, of course, you want to use it on that blast trimmer, but you can get a double stun, right? You can easily just move in, Merciless Pursuit, boom, echo it, and go again. Gonna find another stun. Hell's Devil just doing a good job. Impale will come out of Mowgli. Core collapsed as well. Hell's Devil taking a bit of damage, but he's gonna be all right. Maybe popping a fountain there, keeping himself alive. 4 stacks on that passive in 2 minutes. I like that.
Yeah, I definitely do, and I think this Fox is really going to be the one to watch as the game goes on. There's another stack for Hell's Devil. Not able to find anything on Tricky, but Fox and Krull have a very interesting trade back and forth. If Krull's able to stay onto Vox, if Lance is able to help lock down that Vox in a deadly position for the... hold on, we got Riku Meza down here.
Yeah, Riku Meza finding HF guys. He was trying to port out in that left tri-brush there. HF Guy will be able to get out, Rikumez back to his side of the jungle, and no one quite getting caught yet.
Yeah, nobody getting caught yet, and Mercilli's actually going to take the opportunity to recall back now, spend some of that gold, does pick up the heavy steal, so perhaps working into the first item breaking point this build, knowing that that Krull is going to be in his face, it's going to give him an opportunity, if he kites well enough, to stack up that breaking point very quickly, and it could turn a fight around. That Krull loses a lot of that tankiness when Vox starts hitting like a truck.
Absolutely. I mean, that's one of the worst feelings in the game when you realize you've gone too far, and he's got too many breaking points. Now Rikumez moves in. Are going to be rooted up and impaled. He's probably going to get chopped down, and indeed, HF Guy goes down. Dynasty striking first blood here. Hell's Devil, he'll move right back up into the lane, but Rikumez, Mobley, a fantastic job. Now Tricky taking quite a bit of damage. He'll be forced to use his boots. He gets out of harm's way. You can see he's low on energy, low on health. He doesn't really want to hang around here.
Yeah, low on energy, low on health. Nice thing about Celeste is those basic attacks do gain a portion of her crystal power, which will help her clear out the wave as she picks up a couple more items. That first blood going out of Rikumez is absolutely huge, though. This Krull appears like he might be going into that tension bow first item, that very assassin-style Krull build. So getting that bonus 200 gold could really put this Krull into a very, very aggressive state very early on in this game. But Mowgli's taking a lot of damage here in the lane.
Mowgli taking quite a bit of damage here. I mean, he's been frontlining the whole time. He's got a lot of gold built up. Rikumez, he's building up the Dead Man's Rush. He's on to HF Guy. I don't know if Kestrel gets out of this one. The stun from Hell's Devil. Rikumez, he traded the damage. He's waiting for the Glimmer Shots to reload, and he chops him down, activating that Spectral Smite. He knows the Mercilli's drop down, so he moves over to the brush. He's empowered again. The flare is out. They know where Rikumez is, but it's hard to track him down. You're wasting more time trying to kill him at this point. I feel like if you actually go for him. And he's on to Mercilli's. Rikumez is having a phenomenal early game.
He absolutely is, and once that Krull in this early game gets latched onto HF Guy, if a active camo is not down for Kestrel to retreat into, that is almost always going to result in a kill for Rikumez. That tension bow is complete, and again, once Krull gets on Kestrel, she can't drop those active camos. So it's going to rely on HF Guy playing the very defensive game here. Not so much going for that heavy poke, unless if you can find it cleanly onto Tricky, but trying to bait Krull into a position that you can lock him up and allow Mercilli's to be that hyper carry for your team.
Well, if they can do that, I think it'll work out for them great. The thing is, though, like you said, Rikumez going for the tension bow. That is so much burst damage early on here, and the Kestrel is incredibly squishy, so like you said, he has to play a bit more defensive than he'd probably like. Tricky doing a good job to throw his Helios down to get vision. Rikumez, one more time, he's moving in. He's going to take the mids way. You know, he doesn't want to deal with that Crystal Sentry. HF Guy had an active camo down. Rikumez making the smart play.
Yeah, he absolutely is, and we're sitting almost 1,000 gold lead for Dynasty. Nothing that Clash can't come back from, nothing that Dynasty can really for sure run away with and just be that far ahead. But that is now going to be a Fountain for Mowgli, so Fountain is complete for both sides. 12 stacks for Hell's Devil on this Catherine already, and we have all three members of Clash in lane, and only Mowgli. Will they get an opportunity here to push in this turret and get some damage down?
I don't know. Oh, nice Githian wall Mowgli. I know, he just sniffed that one out. Spidey senses galore. Now, what I'm looking at here, look at the CS difference between Tricky and Mercilli's. Now, a lot of the damage hasn't been happening up in the lane, the engages. It's been down in the jungle, but it's allowed them to have an advantage here. Rikumez once again applying pressure, and it's just kind of like a rotation through. He sees if he can catch anything, and he's right back into the front half of Clash jungle.
Yeah, and this is actually the opposite of what we saw last game. It was Clash taking the early game lane lead, and this time Tricky coming through on this Celeste has really been doing a great job keeping Mercilli's down. They are both over that 10 CS a minute mark, so nobody really too hurt here. But we have 2 tier 3s now complete on this Celeste. The Eve of Harvest and the Frost
Curse hard, connects, core collapse! Whoa! Okay. That's what we like to call a little bit of a combo right there.
That was a beautiful combo, but they're not done as they start chaining it on Hell's Devil.
Hell's Devil, he's slowed up. They had the Spectral Smite, that Solar Storm off the mark, but they find the kill anyway. Dynasty moving forward with momentum here. It feels like they know exactly what they want to accomplish.
Yeah, HF Guy finds a couple of good Glimmer Shots there coming through onto Tricky and Mowgli, dropping them very low, and now Rikumez looking to play very aggressive here, sitting in the enemy jungle. Again, if he's able to get on to HF Guy, if there's not an active camo waiting, maybe even 2 at this point in the game, just because of how Rikumez is ahead, he's going to get in here and, wow, Rikumez.
Oh!
Oh, he got it! One shot, one kill. HF guy gets him.
Yeah, that was a really good time for HF Guy, picking up a couple shots onto Rukumeza as his attention was focused onto the jungle minion there. He'd actually already used the Dead Man's Rush, so the gap closer was down. That was a huge opportunity for HF Guy, and you know, they're able to turn around. Again, this Clash team, they can't compete with Dynasty, and they're really showing it back and forth.
Oh, they are. Intel lands. A nice dodge of the core collapse. Mercedes using Sonic Zoom to get himself backwards. And that's what you talked about earlier. We're talking about the Sonic Zoom, using the mobility to dodge out these stuns. And if they don't land the combos, a lot of times you're going to survive and turn it around.
Yeah, and what I really want to focus on here is Hell's Devil. Last game, we saw Mowgli block all but one of those from Hell's Hearts. Will we see the same mechanics come out of Hell's Devil here? He is their starting captain.
Well, he's going to get stunned up there. He doesn't have the Storm Guard, and it looks like they should be able to find the kill. They do get the found. The one shot comes through. Mowgli, he takes up for his team. Solar Storm is going to be reflected back. Tricky doing his best. Rikumeza couldn't find the damage either. And Hell's Devil's going to live right through that one.
Yeah, and we don't have any blocks yet on the side of Clash, so those from Hell's Heart are going to find very easy targets. Now HF Guy,
he's stunned up. They've got the damage onto the turret. They take him down.
Mercedes, he can just wait in the wings, watching his ally go down. He wants to defend his turret here. Dynasty applying pressure, abusing the power of the Celeste, who is now level 8 here.
Yeah, and level 8 is really that huge spike for Celeste. Getting the overdrive on those Heliogenesis, increasing your attack range with that ability. Hell's Devil does find Rukumeza, gets another stack there. But, you know, now that Celeste is really at a point, 3 items now on Celeste. Looking over at Mercedes, he just now purchased his second tier 3. So definitely showing a big advantage here for the side of Dynasty. And with that clockwork complete, it is going to be a lot of spam coming out of Tricky, a lot of zoning potential, which is going to make it difficult for HF Guy to get an aggressive position.
I mean, a lot of spam, but also he's not going to have to move back space. We saw him low energy, and when he had to move back, maybe Clash took advantage of that. One shot coming through, hitting onto Mowgli there. You can see it's pretty good damage starting to stack up. HF Guy, he's up in the lane, active camo's down. And no Rikumeza is up in that top rush. Look at those glitter shots burning through 2 of Dynasty at this point. Kind of a standoff in the lane. You see the Helio stacking up. Good damage coming through Tricky. Solar Storm comes through, just letting him know, hey, I have this ability. It's actually on cooldown now. He'll clear out that top scout trap. Rikumeza doing a good job. Powered by those shadows once again. Hell's Devil moving in. They missed the core collapse. Wait for it. It's coming through, but they turned it. Mowgli finds the stun. They're back on Mercedes. Mercedes is down. Rikumeza trying to get on target. Can he find another one? It looks like they're just going to settle for 1 at this point. Nice job once again by Dynasty.
Yeah, the from Hell's Heart does come through, finds a clean stun, and that's going to allow them to take a fight and likely a turret as this Celeste, so much siege damage. Woo. Mowgli.
Yeah. Mowgli is just kind of like a magnet for these one-shots at this point. I'm not sure how many 3 connecting on him at this point. Rukumeza once again taking the front half of this jungle. Now, I don't know if it's necessarily a playstyle thing or if it's just the fact that, you know, in game 1, Clash had a Kroll, Dynasty taking the Kroll here. Is that what's giving them the ability to take the front jungle and apply pressure?
Well, with the Kroll, it's very interesting because it is, like I was mentioning earlier, it's an interesting shift of meta as we've seen so many, for the past couple patches at least, it's been all weapon heroes in the lane. Crystal aggressive junglers have really been that solid go-to meta. And that's in 2.7, we've really seen that shift quite a bit. These Celestes and Scarfs and Idris are able to come to the lane, and they're really able to be a hyper carry because of just how strong Broken Myth can be on these heroes once it's ramped up, you know, 5, 6, 7, 8 stacks.
Ooh, so many stacks.
Yeah, can really turn a fight quickly, and Dynasty is looking pretty good right now. Definitely not wanting to give up another game to Clash after they were so close last game.
Oh, you could tell that they thought they had that game. Now Dynasty hanging out. Rikumeza in the top rush. He's powered up. You know that he's going to be looking for a stun here, but he's stunned up from Hell's Heart. Comes out on Mercedes. Can they chop him down? Helio's there. They're able to find the stun in reverse. The impale comes out, found from both sides, keeping them alive. Down to the bottom. Mercedes turns it. Rikumeza trying to stand his ground. Can't even move it. He's silent. They're trying to take each other out. Unbelievable fight. They're able to take down HF Guy as well. Can Hell's Devil stay alive? Dynasty on the chase. Tricky wants it. He's gonna get him. Double kill. And the ace coming through for Dynasty.
Yeah, good fight there coming from Dynasty. A 1-for-1 trade between Mercedes and Rikumeza, but with Tricky and Mowgli alive, that's going to give them a lot of pushing opportunity with this ace wave. They are going to clean out this turret as they have a 9-2 advantage right now, 5,000 gold lead for Dynasty. And as we get into this replay, obviously Riku Meza here taking this aggressive positioning up top is going to find his way onto Mercilli's with a good stun, does not get blocked, and that's really the key thing here. HF Guy finds a good active camo, but it's just too much with HF Guy. Once he takes that damage, he is just food for the side of Dynasty, and he doesn't have anywhere to go. If you're not fighting around the active camos, the Celeste is not going to win out that trade, and we saw it there. It's, you know, the 1v1 went well for Mercilli's, I guess. You know, he dropped, but he was able to take down Krull, and Tricky was able to clean up the rest of the fight.
I mean, it's not the... Oh, active camo's down. Are you going to turn it? Oh, I felt like Tricky was in a dangerous place there. I'm telling you, Denominate. He's moving forward. Another active camo down. Now he's going to go for the shot. 1, 2. Tricky dropping low. That is a lot of damage trying to stack up. One shot. Mowgli body blocks it. HF Guy. He's hungry for a kill here.
He is, and that was super aggressive and dangerous positioning, but found a lot of damage onto Tricky there and was able to make it out safely. That's really the key thing. The flare was just an inch low out of Mowgli there. The edge of that flare would have caught HF Guy. That would have been a free kill going over to Dynasty. Instead, he gets a lot of damage down, is able to make it out safely. Doesn't find a kill, but doesn't die himself. So not too bad for QLASH right now.
I mean, I was about to say, like, how hard it is for him to actually get into a decent position. You know, the Celeste constantly throwing down Helios, making them go supernova. You take that damage, suddenly you're in a tough spot. And then if Riku Meza gets on you, yeah, you're probably going to go down, as you had said before. Dynasty moving forward, flares for both teams are not looking to be caught by surprise now. Mowgli potentially looking for an impale to start things off. One shot, connecting onto Mowgli once again. About 90% of these one shots hitting this lands here. Tricky doing his best to just clear these waves out, stay back. He doesn't want to be stunned up, does not want to be caught, and at the same time, I think also playing a little bit safe, not knowing exactly where the Kestrel was.
Yeah, and as we got a gold mine start up here, it does look like QLASH knows what's going on and is rotating over. Humanist.
Yeah, they throw up from the Hell's hard to wait for it as well. They just blew HF Guy and Mercilli's up. Where did they even go? Hell's Devil, he doesn't have a chance. Dynasty. I mean, it felt like they were playing like with overpowered something there. That was absolutely insane.
Well, we've got Tricky now on 4 items, 4 complete offensive items. The good from Hell's Heart come out from Riku Meza. We haven't seen one of those blocked yet. Not a single one. Every time Riku Meza is able to get that stun, it's Tricky getting a supernova down. It's Riku Meza going in with this very aggressive tension bow, poison shift, Krull build. A lot of sustain. Him and Mowgli on this front line have really made it easy for Tricky to build up these stacks and take over a fight very quickly. Tricky sitting at 6-0 right now.
Tricky has had a phenomenal game now. 6-0 at this point. He's picked up some fresh boots here, and he's going to be moving forward. The damage is immense coming out of this Celeste. He could just sit on the back line. You have the Krull in front of him. You have the Lance to peel for you. As long as the good flares are coming out from Mowgli there. I don't know if they actually caught it. Active Camo's going to go down. He finds the stun on the Mowgli from Hell's Heart, blocked off. HF Guy moving back, and I think he's potentially slowed up. They should be finding the kill on the Kestrel. They find it. Now Tricky on the backside, taking damage from Mercilli's. Mercilli's has the kite. Wait for it coming through the Soul Storm. Cleans him up, though. And Hell's Devil left as the last man standing for his team one more time. Dynasty with the ace. And I gotta tell you, Denominator, this is looking like Dynasty's game too here.
Last game was looking like Dynasty though, and we saw a lot of life come out of QLASH really quickly, so I do think Dynasty should be able to close out here with the damage that they have. But you know, it's really been an interesting series so far. I was excited to see the Catherine come through, but they fought it with more crowd control.
Just a matter of time before we're going to be closing this one out. Dynasty, a phenomenal game too. It looked like they were a little bit deflated after game 1. You could tell that didn't sit with them too well. A little bit more pep in their step here.
Definitely a little bit more. I think Tricky got on a very comfortable pick for him. Again, the Crystal Mage meta is really starting to shift back, and that is something that he's obviously showing he can handle pretty well. So Humanist, that is now a 1-to-1 series that we have here off of some beautiful plays coming out of Dynasty.
Beautiful plays, and this is the thing. We said before, the analysts talked about it, everybody that knows these teams, they stack up incredibly well. So it's nice to see them come out here 1-to-1. Of course, we would expect this kind of a result so far. Now to see what we can expect moving forward and what exactly happened right there, we're going to go ahead and throw it to our analyst desk.
What happened right there was Dynasty showing an absolute masterclass on how to run a triple CC composition, how to lock down a team and take control, and also proving that their morale is not broken just yet. They are still well and truly
They answered a couple questions right there in a big way. There was no tilt from game number 1. because that was absolutely a dominant
They
performance.
also answered one question for me. You saw Rogue run that composition a lot in NA, and NA drafts work against EU drafts, right?
I guess so. I guess so. I mean, you might just be right on that one. This is on the new update, but apparently this composition still very much works now. I also want to just point out how clean the play was from Dynasty as well. Even when we got into the team fights later on in the game, but especially in the early game, Dynasty's so good at taking control of these situations.
Yeah, I mean, Crow and Lance combos just did an amazing job, and like, Dynasty used their power spike really well. As soon as Crow turned level 6, they would normally get a kill from it. I do want to say they could have taken a turret earlier though. I was taking notes and they took a turret at the 10-minute mark. And Dynasty was just so ahead. I don't know why they didn't force a turret earlier, but nevertheless they still won and did really well.
This was
and
beautiful.
this was beautiful. It was hilarious that one shot, one kill. So really well played by AHK. But I have to say, Hell's Devil played really well as well. But this was really risky here. The play by Mowgli was perfect. He boots in, lands a K3-1, then roots them, and Kesha was just dead. She has no reflex block. She cannot survive that, CC.
And we saw constantly also Rikameza just sitting in brushes, building up that heroic perk so that he could jump out and get that little bit of extra damage, that little bit of slow. Oftentimes was just enough. There's one instance where, you know, he was basically sacrificed himself to just sit there and wait while he was getting ulted by the Vox, but ended up trading the kill because he was patient enough to eat the ultimate, but still get that perk off and get that little bit of extra damage needed to trade the kill.
One thing I want to mention, and just all the captains in EU, they've been playing really well. I mean, they've been blocking crow stuns from the bush. I mean, Hell's Devil blocked one, and it was amazing to see that mechanical and sheer talent show up for today in the live finals.
Yeah, for sure. Especially in these teams where these are teams with substitutes, but they are not playing like it at all here on the stage. We've seen both Clash and Dynasty step up. Granted, Dynasty have spent the majority of this series winning, even though they've only won half of the games. But Clash definitely, they've had some incredible play coming out from themselves as well. I'm impressed by HF guy's Kestrel this game as well. Like, I mean, we saw the solo kill he managed to pull out earlier, but this was one of the fights that really started to solidify the victory for Dynasty.
Yeah, again, the From Hell's Heart connecting, and this is actually the one I was talking about where he sits in this brush, eats the ultimate, but then makes the trade with the Shadows Empower Me perk while the rest of the team is fighting. This was something we saw a lot in this game as well, was Dynasty being able to split Clash and force these fights to happen in basically 3 different areas and have multiple different 1v1 fights going on. And in 1v1 situations, Kroll is going to win every 1v1.
It's getting spooky up in here.
Kroll's going to win every 1v1. That was just Kroll like doing something, I would assume.
Shadows empower us, what can I say? But yeah, let's take a look at the later stages of the game, because this is when Dynasty already had a pretty significant lead and the fights started to get more and more one-sided.
Yeah, this is a beautiful play. I mean, Kesha has no defense against Celeste, and if they land a CC and Celeste drops 2 Helios along with the clock, I mean, he has 4 items Celeste. The Kestrel cannot be out of position. It's too risky. But look at that beautiful block by Hell's Devil. They still lost the fight, but it was a beautiful block. But look how tricky he plays Celeste. He's playing so well. He lands almost every single one of the Solar Storm ultimates. I mean, that is a key win condition for Celeste. You have to land those ultimates, and he did do that very well.
Yeah, he did a beautiful job on the Celeste. Kind of looked a lot like Hundor, to be honest, in those fights where you're kind of kiting around your team's there to protect you and distract the enemy team, and in the meantime, you just clean shop. And that's exactly what Dynasty did here in game number 2. That means they are going to even things up. Honestly, if you're a Dynasty fan at home, you're probably thinking this probably should be 2-0 at this stage.
Not even if you're a Dynasty fan, even if you're a Clash fan, this still should probably be a 2-0 right now. But you're at least happy that it's a 1-1 if you're a Clash fan, because there is still that potential of, you know, being able to put together some wins. You have the opportunity there, but Dynasty, that's what we should be seeing from a team that gets a lead like that, is the ability to close out the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that has really been impactful in the series is the draft. We saw in game 1, Dynasty did not have a great draft, and that was kind of one of the reasons they lost in the end. And it felt like it should have been a stronger win for Clash, to be honest, with how the draft played out. And I'm curious to see how the draft continues to develop across the series.
I think more importantly, though, for Clash, if I were them, I would think about their early game, because look at both games. Dynasty just outplayed them from a macro and rotation standpoint. and they won the early game, both games, very hard. So Clash needs to fix that, because if they don't at least play even in the early game, mid game, they will continue to get snowballed, and it's an uphill battle for them.
All right, well, it's time to get back on into the draft and head towards game number 3. We'll see whether Dynasty have started to pick up momentum and are going to be able to get on a roll. Actually, first banning Black Feather. That is not what I expected.
Yeah, I mean, then of course the Idris ban, probably from Clash here, or Catherine, and then if Catherine is banned, then they'll take one or the other.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's actually a really smart first ban from Dynasty, and this is something we saw some teams start to do in the regular season, is just take a ban that's a strong pick, but not one of the high priority picks, and allow yourself to guarantee one of those two really big picks.
And there we go. The Idris will be picked, because if they do not take Idris here, Mercedes will take it, because he is really proficient on Idris. So that Idris will be picked up, and now that leaves Grace open for Clash here, so they could potentially just pick up the Grace or Lyra, but one or the other, they're going to take them and ban.
So they go for the Lyra. You want them to ban the Grace right here,
Oh,
because
yeah,
otherwise you're going to give the exact same
Not that
composition
you
that we
want them
saw
to,
earlier.
they have to. They have to ban Grace here, otherwise they are asking for trouble. Unless they plan on doing a double healer composition, that's the only way that this could work out for Clash.
We did see a little bit of weapon power Grace in EU last patch. So
Please don't
I mean,
remind me.
I'm sorry to bring it up, but that is a legitimate possibility.
It worked though. It depends
did
on how
work.
the comp is executed. Honestly, it's how you play your comp is matters more versus what is meta or not. So Kesha will be taken away, and then that's going to leave Grace open. Clash will not pick Grace, because Grace and Lyra just don't have any synergy. So that means most likely they're going to pick their laner, like a potential Vox maybe, or even potentially like a mage if they want, but it's a little risky until Idris, because they can just play weapon power and die. Oh, and that's risky right there, because Idris can now play weapon power and just dive onto that Scarf.
Especially with the
With the
Grace.
Grace.
Yeah, this is this should be a very easy Grace pickup for Dynasty. Just run that duo and just dive this Scarf, kill him before he gets his stacks built up at all. This is looking like it should be a very strong draft for Dynasty.
Yeah, it certainly is. I just want to point something out right there. You can see Tricky on the far left of the stage. He's sitting in a position that, is that comfortable? Like, that doesn't look like that could possibly be comfortable at this point. But
whatever floats his boat.
Yeah, whatever gets you going. But the Grace is going to be the lock-in here alongside that Idris. How do you expect them to finish out this composition?
Yeah, I think against the Lyra, if you're going to do a weapon, you can go CP Idris too, and even go like a Grumpjaw or Glaive. Since Crow is banned, it opens up so many possibilities.
I don't think you do
now.
Grumpjaw into a Scarf though. That was always the counter. Scarf counters Grumpjaw because it's just stripping away those living armor stacks. So Grumpjaw not likely, but something like Glaive could come out.
Yeah, Glaive would look really good here. Grumpjaw would still work, just executing the combination. And basically, because Lyra is not a good PO, you have to time the bulwark properly, and it's on such a high cooldown. So you bait that bulwark out, you then free to completely dive onto the Scarf because she can't peel that well. So I think out of the options that they have, oh, they're going for a CP Taka, it looks like.
Yeah, they want to have those mortal wounds easily applied. You got to figure that's the reasoning behind the Taka. Apply the mortal wounds just to make sure that Lyra cannot heal this Scarf up and that Idris can get those assassinations off.
The really sad thing here for Clash is you'd love to see them go for a Rhyme here. For the triple melee, right? You're going to be able to do incredible work, but you already have the CP laner locked in, or CP jungle if you take Scarf in the jungle either. But either way, the CP is already locked in.
They're probably going to go with potentially Glaive or Vox here. Glaive would not be good into a Grace, because he would be just, Taka and Idris can just focus whoever the carry they pick. So Vox may be a potential pick here, and they're going to jungle the Scarf, I would say. But Scarf's going to have a really hard time in the jungle against a Grace and Taka. Lyra does not win against Grace early game, and Taka, when he has 5 stacks, does a lot of extra damage and speed movement that can just follow up and just kill the Scarf in the early game and eat up the jungle.
Yeah, the idea here for Clash is to just outrange Dynasty and try and keep them at arm's length, but there's so much dive on the side of Dynasty that it's much easier said than done to try and keep them at bay. Dynasty has a very strong draft with this triple melee and should be able to get onto this backline pretty consistently.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see whether they can get onto that backline, and also how Clash is going to deal with this situation, right? Where you've got the Vox and the Scarf, who are both very, very vulnerable to being dived on. Whether or not they're going to be able to kite this one out, and whether they can be effective. You know, we saw Mercedes on the Vox last game doing a great job of kiting for a while, but it only works for so long when you've got to protect yourself.
Yeah, it can be very difficult to keep yourself alive, especially if Lyra can only do so much. She can provide the bulwark, but as CJ mentioned, it's a very long cooldown. If it gets baited out at all, then you're just kind of running for the hills until you have your cooldowns available again. Scarf's going to be trying to get those Spitfires off to keep people at bay. The Frostburn is going to be extremely important for him, which is going to delay the broken mid a little bit longer than usual, perhaps. And so it's going to be a very difficult composition for Clash.
Yeah, Vox and Scarf don't have the highest base health too, so along with Taka's burst and CP Idris with his Chakram double hit and the amplification when he does his Shroud Step, he has a 40% or so weapon amp damage, 45% I believe, and that's a lot of burst coming out. On top of Grace as well, she does actually decent damage from her Benediction, so this is going to be a really, really tough game. The Lyra has to basically bulwark perfectly, because you can cancel a Taka Exretsu if you can bulwark right on time. You can actually cancel it. So
that's a
if
really
they can do that, then maybe they have a chance.
That's a really
I was
tough
going to
timing.
say, like, I will give a standing ovation to Hell's Devil if he can pull that one off. We'll have to see as it's time to jump on into the second game, or third game, sorry, of this series. Dynasty with momentum, but Clash, they're not looking to go out without a fight. Let's pass it over to our casters once more.
Indeed, getting ready for the third game here, and very fun drafts on both sides, Denominate. A lot of gap closing ability for Dynasty. I actually really like it.
I really do too, and Scarf has been a pick for the side of Clash that has been a really strong pick for them.
Yeah.
But as the analyst talked about it, that Idris Grace combination, able to get to that back line, able to dive very heavily. It's gonna be interesting to see. It's gonna come down to the execution of Dynasty.
It really will be. And now they talked about Bright Bulwark as an important tool. Timing, incredibly important. If that gets baited out and Hell's Devil uses that too early, they can just jump onto the Scarf. I'm really curious to see how this plays out here. Now early on, Mowgli making a deep run into Clash's jungle. He might be able to steal the backs here. HF guy able to secure the majority of it. Mowgli gets one of the backs, so that's actually a really nice pickup for him. Now he's deep in the opponent's jungle. Hell's Devil is going to let loose a couple of those auto attacks to fly. Mowgli hanging around. Is he going to get rooted up? The Benediction forward, that gap closing ability we talked about so many times before. And looks like Mowgli with that should get out of here. So Clash pretty safe in their early rotation.
Yeah, but Dynasty was able to pick away one of those CS out of the back jungle, so, Mowgli really making sure to use Grace to his advantage. Now, she's not as blessed as she once was. She did have some changes, a little bit weaker healing on that ultimate, the Divine Intervention.
Right.
Also, a slight nerf to her passive movement speed, down from 3.7 to 3.5.
Down from infinity to...
Yeah, and Mercilli's now taking a lot of damage, but I think looking from game 1 to game 2, I think there's a distinct mechanical skill advantage here for Dynasty, just off of how many of those From Hell's Hearts we saw Mowgli block,
yeah,
and how many we saw get through onto Clash.
I mean, I think that's where we would say that's one of the advantages for Dynasty. I mean, Mowgli, he is so well practiced at making those plays here on the stage. We would expect him to be landing those blocks.
I mean, 3-time champion for a reason, man. I mean,
absolutely. I could have fired some shots there, but I'm not going to do it. Now, moving forward here in this game, HF guy, he's had a couple early minutes. Yeah, Mowgli, he was able to take one of his backs, but here he is, 2 minutes, level 3. This is where Scarf wants to be.
This is where Scarf wants to be, especially when his abilities are off of the cooldown, and we have that Spitfire and Goop coming now off. Rikumez is burning. This is an opportunity for HF guy. But doesn't look like they're going to take it. That Goop was available, Humanist.
It looked like they were very hesitant. Now HF guy moving forward, he didn't have vision, taking quite a bit of damage. Benedictions in, the root off the mark from the Elder Treant who wanted to fight there as well. Riku Mesa though has the move speed. HF guy doing it, goes down, Titan over the top to finish him off. And first blood for Dynasty looking good. Kaku, he's on to the Hell's Devil. I don't think he wants to get under a turret just yet, but he does want to take away the backs, and it looks like he's going to get the Spirit Charge. Mowgli, is he going to get Hell's Devil? I thought he was going to pull off of that one. Sigil keeps Hell's Devil alive, but Mowgli looking to play games here.
Yeah, Mowgli rotating down in time to get the ambient gold off of that, and now Rukumeza's here on HF guy. Humanist.
HF guy, you're in a bad place, buddy. The Goop is trying to just stand around, dodge around HF guy. He is down. Second kill for Dynasty, and all your jungle now belong to Dynasty. That's a rough place to be in.
It is a rough place to be in. Now, Taka should be able to take a little bit early of an edge over Scarf. Scarf does take a little bit of time to ramp up, but Taka's going to fall off when Scarf is getting to that point that he's really online. It is going to come down to the amount of execution that Dynasty can pull off together. And, this will likely be a Crystal Taka. If they're not able to execute it with the weapon Idris and the Taka, they could lose out on a fight easily. Tricky
is down. Clash coming through as a unit, as a team. And a little bit of taunt coming out there. HF guy having a good time, but a nice job by QLASH.
Yeah, really nice job by QLASH. Tricky, takes the quick way back to the shop. Picks up that poison shiv, the efficiency. He didn't have to walk, he didn't have to port. Boots are used to get him back into lane here. And now we're working into the Storm Crown on Rukumeza. That's going to give him a lot of jungle clear to really keep up with what HF guy is going to be able to do here on the Scarf. Not quite as fast, but when he does get those invades, he's going to be able to clean out that jungle a lot easier. And that's the key thing on this Taka.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen so much Taka as of recent. It's really nice to see it here, and I was kind of curious, like, how is he going to actually build? And it sounds like you're pretty much on board with the direction he's taking. Yeah,
he'll very likely go, so he does have the Storm Crown now complete. He'll very likely go into some Crystal now, just look for that raw burst. The Storm Crown will help him with the basic attacks to follow up, as well as give him additional cooldowns. And that's really the key thing here, is he'll probably go to Aftershock next and really try to keep those cooldowns low, because that's Taka's real defense, is having that Kaku available, having that Kaiten available, as well as the gap closers he has in his kit. Just, it can make him a huge threat to mages.
And that's where we're going to see him X-Retsu win, Kaiten over the top, Kaku out, wait for those cooldowns and just rinse and repeat. So it's going to be incredibly important for Hell's Devil to have that Bright Bulwark up and running now. This is going to be Rukumeza sneaking into Clash's jungle. Well, Clash as Free looking to apply pressure up in the lane. Now, they do have a nice little poke comp, which could apply some pressure onto the turret. They're actually getting a bit of chip damage, but they are losing their jungle, and I don't know how I feel about this.
Yeah, I mean, we look over Rukumeza, 34 CS right now. And over to HF guy, we're sitting at 19. They are getting good lane aggression down here, Humans, like you said.
I mean, if they can get a kill, if they can get the turret, this could definitely be worth it. They force the fountain out. Mowgli's there, gives a little bit of a holy shield to him and his allies so he can be the front side of that fight for his team. It does force Clash back. If Clash move into the jungle now, they're going to realize that it's been cleared out. It would be pretty unfortunate for them at this point.
Yeah, it absolutely would be, but Tricky with this Poison Shiv now in lane is going to be able to sustain a lot easier than he had in the early game. HF guy is now rotating up at Rukumeza. Ooh, who did that one go over to?
HF guy got it. HF guy got it.
Is going to clear that one out with a good timed Spitfire and Goop. So overall, we're sitting close to a 2,000 gold advantage for Dynasty. Rukumeza's really been aggressive with his rotations. And overall, Dynasty has an opportunity here where they can push this early game advantage and really run away with it, with Scarf getting so far behind.
Yeah, Scarf really starting to fall behind now. As we look at this Denominate, what do you see as like the big power spikes across the board for both of these teams that could potentially like change the momentum of this game?
Well, the weapon Idris is really, he really excels in this mid-game. The part that we're getting here to, 6-7 minutes, he's working into his second item. That's really where Tricky is going to start to be that really deadly threat for Mercillies. And Rukumeza, as he completes the Aftershock, he's going to provide a lot of burst for his team, and now he's coming up right now.
Oh, even with an infusion, X-Retsu, the Kite UC, look at that 75-80% of his health, even maybe more than that, taking HF guy so low. That was crazy.
But the downside to that is if that X-Retsu comes in and a Bright Bullet comes down, Taka's going to be locked in a very deadly situation. And now it's Clash looking to put on a little bit of aggression of their own.
But there's 3 from Dynasty here. With that X-Retsu, it should cancel off any aggression. It looks like both teams are just going to go their separate ways at this point. Now, to your point, I think talking about the Bright Bulwarks and X-Retsus, actually jumping. Hell's Devil, he didn't block all of those from Hell's Hearts previously. So I don't know if I have the faith that he can drop that perfect Bright Bulwark.
Well, the perfect Bright Bulwark is you drop it. Ooh.
Rukumeza in, he's very deep, using Kaku immediately. They're on Mercedes trying to kite back. Wow, they blew him up incredibly fast. Tricky really starting to stack up some damage, has unlocked his Divergent Pass now, so that's a really big key here.
Yeah, it is. It allows him to get in and out of fights very, very quickly and cleanly. And, like I was getting to, is that Bright Bulwark, the perfect timing is before the X-Retsu comes out, and it actually can block that ability. Now, you can also use it once the X-Retsu is used and lock Taka then into that point. And that's when the Scarf is gonna, if he can hopefully find a Spitfire and prevent Taka from making an escape with that Kaku, that's kind of the most ideal situation, because then Taka is committed very deep in the fight. That's not so much a perfect timing as blocking the X-Retsu, but then Taka's also on the safe end of a bad situation.
Well, talk to me about, am I in outer space? Am I that, whoa-oh, Mercilli's taking a lot of damage, has to use boost, the Sigil is there. Hell's Devil to keep him alive. See the Rukumeza moving up, he's in the Kaku. He looks for an X-Retsu target, nice Bright Bulwark. And that, I mean, that's pretty much what you're talking about. You drop it, he doesn't want to get under the turret right there, but Mercilli's was in danger.
Yeah, absolutely, and that one was used to actually prevent the X-Retsu from coming out at all. It can be used to completely cancel the ability, which will put it on cooldown, which is that perfect timing. Which we were talking, we're not sure if Clash could do it, but Tricky.
A lot of damage, but a divine intervention keeps him in fighting shape. Mowgli still holding the fountain. I mean, that was incredibly good. You see Clash putting so much pressure, applying so much damage here.
Yeah, and actually that is Riku Meza soloing out the gold mine.
Mercedes gets the healing. Can he find the damage? Riku Meza dropping low. They're able to get one. They traded 1 for 1 now. The HF guy goes down as Tricky jumps in. Tricky dropping to a turret shot there. Hell's Devil and Mowgli. They'll have a little bit of a poke war here at the end of this fight. I doubt either of them end up going down.
Yeah, they shouldn't really be able to win out on a fight here on either one. That is a jungler and a carry down for both sides. But before that fight, Riku Meza was able to take that gold mine, increasing the gold lead. And as we get into this replay, we'll really start to see where the damage is able to trade very quickly. There's that gold mine take from Riku Meza, that Storm Crown coming into huge effect. Coming in here very, very low, able to get a lot of damage down, but the damage is returned as the fountain comes through on Mercedes, able to turn the fight around quickly. HF guy gets enough damage onto Tricky that the turret's gonna clean him up, and that's gonna leave us at just 2 for 2.
Mercedes, the gap closes and the damage stacking up. Can he stay alive? He ticks down. That damage coming through at the end, just enough to find the kill. Spitfires will come out at HF guy. Hell's Devil as well, trying to hold down this turret as Dynasty, as 3 have an advantage. Benediction in deep. It looks like they want to go for the Scarf. Can they get it? X-Retsu in deep. Kiting over Hell's Devil. Dragon's Breath coming in at HF guy. The turret has aggro. Tricky taking a lot of damage. Shiver Strike in forward. He's trying to trade. Can they find the kill? Tricky's down. Clash have found the kill. Dynasty getting too aggressive and getting punished for it.
Yeah, they absolutely did. Those turret shots in this mid-game really ramp up quickly, and Tricky was a little bit on the wrong side of that damage. 1, 2, 3 takes him out, and that is a kill going over to Clash. Very much still in this game. We have about a 4,000 gold lead for Dynasty.
Yeah.
But again, we've seen Dynasty in a position where it looks like they're going to win the game. It looks like they have everything in their power to do so. Clash is one of those teams that will, if you doubt them, if you give them any inch, they will take it all from you.
I mean, mentality is such a big deal here. Just trying to stay tough, and I think it's such an important thing that a lot of people overlook. You're looking at talented players, yes, across the board, there's a lot of talent out here. But that mental toughness, be able to take a beating and come right back and bring it to your opponent is really a beautiful thing. Clash showing that in spades here. Now, 3 players from each team up into the lane. Looks like we might have some aggression. We're going to have another infusion on the Taka. He's looking for an engagement. Bright will work down. The huge damage. Tricky couldn't get on the target. They've turned it around here. Mercedes kiting backwards, gets the heal. Now it's Riku Meza on the run. Riku Meza probably goes down here. Divine Intervention keeps him alive over the top. They traded it. He gets 1 kill. Riku Meza, can he get out? No, he burns down HF guy. Drops the Spitfire. He wants Mowgli. He's in deep though. Mowgli, will he burn down? Mowgli should stay alive through here. The turret aggro came out on HF guy. He didn't want to deal with that. But with this, Hell's Devil and HF guy will be able to take this turret down. So a very big win here.
Yeah, an absolutely huge win here. And as we get ready to get into this replay, Mercedes went off. The Bright Bulwark came down right here. It did trap Tricky a little too far in. He wasn't able to get out. And there's no breaking point on this Fox yet, but he has gone the Sorrow Blade Poison Shiv route that gives him a lot of sustain.
Yeah.
We see Riku Meza come through here, but he's burning down, and HF guy is able to find it. They don't find Mowgli, but they find a turret, and that's a huge gold chunk coming back into the pockets now of Clash. Again, you give them an inch, they will take the whole mile.
Yeah, they definitely will. Maybe a kilometer. We're talking about EU here. Now, we see the aggression coming out here of Dynasty flexing their muscles. They've got the Tri-Brush on lockdown here. Flares coming out from both teams, not wanting to be caught by surprise. And you can see that this is both teams realizing that each carry, each jungler has the ability to find kills here on the map. It's just a matter if they can find that proper engage. They're both rotating here around Kraken Pit. Gold Miner having a little bit of fun, poking the Arcane Passage in. They're looking to defend their turret, but it looks like they are too late here. Dynasty's taking a turret, and they might want a little more. Holy Nova off the mark of the X-Retsu in. Kiting over the top. Can they find the kill? Yes, they can. Mercedes with the Dragon's Breath coming back from HF guy. He says, how about not? I don't think I actually want to get in there. HF guy gotta get back under his turret. They just blow him up. The Benediction, the X-Retsu, the Kite. There's too much damage. Tricky didn't even get in on that one. He was like, no, I have had enough of that. Now, Hell's Devil, he's gonna sit here and try to defend his turret.
turret, but Dynasty have just turned it up a couple notches here in the last, I mean, that was like 30 seconds of aggression, and they get whatever they want.
Yeah, that was a really good play that they capitalized on there. The Arcane Passage came through on Hell's Devil. That put HF Guy and Mercilli's in a really tough spot. It was used right on the turret, right in the face of where Dynasty Gaming was. They were hammering damage down on that turret. They, quickly cleaned it up, turned their aggression directly onto Mercilli's, drop him, and then in a 2v3, they dive heavy onto HF Guy and find a kill, and there's just nothing that Clash is able to do about it once Mercilli's is down. Scarf needs to get that third item complete before he's really able to take things over.
Well, we'll see. He's building probably into that Eve, would have to imagine, as his third eye moving forward. We'll see, though. HF Guy trying to stay at range. Meza over the wall with an X-Red 2. Akai, the bright bulwark is down as Wait For It comes out, silencing up the Graves here. Divine Intervention on himself. Mowgli keeping himself alive. A great job thus far. That's Tricky getting kited backwards. HF Guy doing his best to land these Spitfires to the goop. Now winds up for the Dragon's Breath. They'll roast Tricky. Now looking for more. Up on the top side, is able to use the Kaku to get out of harm's way. Meza being the sneaky little Taka that makes everybody so fearful when you get into your own solo queues there. And it looks like Mowgli will be able to get out as well. So Tricky, the only one going down here.
Yeah, Tricky the only one dropping, and that's really a huge opportunity for them because they forced so much damage onto Mowgli that he was forced to use his items and his abilities to save himself. And Mercilli's now has that breaking point complete. He was ramping up on that fight into Tricky, who does not have a breaking point. So as the fight gets extended, that is almost always going to trade over into Mercilli's favor. He's going to use the mobility to his advantage. And now, 15 minutes in, this Kraken is on the board. We have a single turret advantage for Dynasty. Whoever wins this next fight could get a huge push here.
I mean, you talked about Dynasty, like, they need to apply pressure. Clash is going to come online late game in a massive way. Do you feel like they have built up enough of an advantage at this point?
They have to find the clean execution. So in that fight that we saw the Arcane Passage come through, they found a lot of damage onto Mercilli's early on in the fight, and it didn't allow him to ramp up because he got taken down so quickly. And that's what we have to see out of Dynasty here. If they allow HF Guy to get those broken med stacks and Mercilli's to get the breaking point, it's going to be bad for Dynasty. And here we go. We got a little bit of aggression back and forth here, Mist.
Mowgli just jumping in with that benediction, doing a good job. He's just in and out of these fights. I also really like that because it forces Clash to kind of respawn, in which they might get into a bad position. Crystal Sentry taken out by Dynasty. A great job. Now they move back towards the center of the map. They jump right back in. HF Guy getting lit up. The Shimmer Strike for Tricky. He gets the Divine Intervention. He's able to take down the Scarf. Now looking for more. Mercilli's goes down. A double kill for Tricky. Finding exactly what he wanted there. Hell's Devil should melt down with it. How about an X-Ratsu for style points there?
And that is looking like a beautiful clean fight for Dynasty, taking a clean ace, a turret off the back. And that was just a little bit too far forward from HF Guy. When Dynasty is allowed to collapse onto one target and focus their burst into one zone, it's going to result in a easy and free kill. And off the back of that, that's Dynasty Gaming just looking to close out the game.
They're going to close. It looks like they're going to close this one out. Ladies and gentlemen, let's see if they can do it right here. Clash doing their best, but Dynasty coming through, finding the fight they needed here, in through the mid, into the late game, and then moving forward, taking out those last couple turrets, and finding that Vein Crystal. Good stuff. High fives to their team. You can see their spirits are lifted.
They absolutely were, and like we said, the execution from Dynasty is going to be absolutely key here. The fights that we've seen, Tricky able to go in onto the same target of Riku Meza, get their burst down together. It was too quick for the Lyra to place down a sigil and heal up, or get that fountain down there. Able to clean up kills quickly, and at that point, you're in a very healthy 2v3 scenario, and they walked away with it.
Yeah, it was really clean. Nice to watch. I'm very impressed. I want to know what our analysts have to say, though. We'll throw it back over to the desk.
I mean, the first thing I want to say, Humanist, is the fact that that was an incredibly fast end coming out from Dynasty. They see the opportunity. I didn't think they had enough time to end the game. I thought they were going to go back for Kraken, but they just see the opportunity, seize it with both hands, and, you know, making sure that they destroy both turrets at the same time so that they don't reduce the death timers and things like that. Those little things make a huge difference in the grand scheme of the game.
Yeah, and like I said, they just did a good job in jungle. I mean, just running it over with Taka and Grace. Scarf and Lyra just didn't stand a chance, and you can see in the jungle, Taka was able to secure the kill on Scarf and just ran away with it. So Rick Ramirez did such a good job playing Taka and understanding the limits. Yep. And he also stole the gold mine by himself at the 9-minute mark, and that gave them like a 3K gold lead, and from there it just snowballed.
I think it's important to mention though that it was not smooth sailing right from the word go for Dynasty. Yes, they had this Taka composition, but it's not like they were single-handedly destroying all of these early game fights.
Yeah, and a lot of that was just because of the weakness of Idris early on. Like, you do need a couple of items before he really starts to come online, and QLASH did a good job of recognizing that and trying to force fights early on, but they tried to force too many fights too late in the game. There's multiple times where, again, we saw, if you go diving a dive comp, you're doing their job for them again, and it happened multiple times down the stretch in this one.
Certainly, Rickham hasn't managed to get the trade on that fight. That was a significant one, but the team fight after that in the game, once we got to the 13-minute mark, I feel like that was where Dynasty really started to actually put their foot down in this game and started to say, look, we're the ones with the better composition. We're the ones that are going to take this one home. Yeah,
and it's important, when you look at the Lyra bulwark, the timing of it and the focus from Dynasty. Once they had a good focus, the bulwark is not, they use it here to engage, but now it's down and it's free dive for Dynasty, and that's where there's no CC. I mean, look at how much damage Taka is doing. The amount of burst damage just goes onto that Vox. He doesn't have any CP defense. So Taka with an infusion and the piercing spear basically half helps him in one combo. And then Idris just has to follow up, and then their comp is so squishy that
again,
it just
bulwark
works.
Down early, and they start to go away and then say, oh, you're going to keep chasing us. Well, now all of our stuff's off cooldown. We can re-engage. We know your bulwark isn't available. This is an easy team fight win. And again, you can get one of our members low, but we have that divine intervention to come out and make sure that we stay topped up. And again, how clean the end of this game was. We talk about teams being able to close out games and struggling to close out games. A lot of times is what we've seen from Dynasty. This was not the case here. They were so decisive, getting that ace and recognizing we have enough time to take both of these turrets and finish the game.
Yeah, I'm just glad that Taka is being played because he has a place in this meta. It's just a lot of teams don't want to risk it because it is a little execution heavy. But once you execute it, it's high risk, but so much reward.
It's something that we saw in the EA finals as well. They were willing to play that, and it worked to great success when you can execute it, as you say. And it works specifically well into the carries like your Celeste, like your Scarf, that don't really have their own ways of escaping. Yes, with Celeste you can land the stun, but it's not easy when Taka's dancing around you. It's not an easy target to lock down. So definitely something that I expect to see a lot more later on today as well. But now we have a 2-1 scoreline on our hands, gentlemen. That means the Dynasty, they're close to pushing this one to a victory in this series and potentially moving on to day 2. But QLASH, they're not out just yet.
Yeah, Dynasty also just broke the current pattern we've had throughout the day. That was the first game that blue side was able to find the victory on. So finally just kind of shaking things up a little bit in terms of that. We'll see if they can continue this streak and put together 3 wins in a row, as they're now the first team to put together 2 in a row.
Interesting draft here. QLASH is actually following Dynasty's previous game, banning the Black Feather away, and then now Lyra's picked. Catherine, I feel, is better than Lyra, though. So they have an option here to pick Catherine or Grace here, but I think they might opt for the Grace since they have played Grace so well into Lyra compositions. So I think Dynasty may go ahead and pick up the Grace, or they may just pick a key carry, like maybe Kestrel, and deny it, and then let QLASH decide to ban away Grace or Cath. But they're going to go with Cath here, which is really smart, I think.
It feels a little bit like when you first pick the Lyra like that with Catherine available, it's more down to comfort picks than it is what we think is the strongest in the meta. Because I feel like Catherine is kind of unarguably the strongest captain right now.
Yeah, at least in the West. Because you go back to the East Asian finals, we didn't see Catherine at all. But with the Catherine pick, it does now then force, once Dynasty makes their ban decision, they can ban whatever they want. QLASH will have to force that force the Batiste ban.
Yeah, they have to, and that's going to let Dynasty get Vox. Ooh, never mind. Vox is good into Lyra, but they're going to ban it against themselves. QLASH now needs to ban away the Batiste here, but let's see if that does happen.
Yeah, a few different directions that they can go. As you rightly say, the Batiste ban would be very prevalent since the Catherine is there for Dynasty. It's a composition, Catherine Batiste, that we've basically not seen in quite a few weeks, because we saw it once or twice and no team would ever let it through again.
Yeah, it's a very strong duo. There's so much lockdown. They're gonna ban the Celeste. Maybe they're just hoping that it's been so long since Catherine Baptiste has been played that Dynasty doesn't play it anymore, or like that, or that's just something that they haven't practiced.
We haven't seen any Baptiste just yet, so yeah, the Kestrel's going to be locked on in here.
This is really surprising. I mean, even if it's something that you don't play all the time, like Riku Meza is a player that I would expect to be able to play Baptiste.
He's played Baptiste
during the season.
During the season.
Yeah, and so
and he played it really well too, if I remember.
Yeah, it's very surprising to me that they didn't go for that duo, because it is such a massive lockdown combo.
I think Baptiste is definitely something that's kind of started to lean to pretty much only the captain role as of recently. I'd like to see him come out more in the jungle, but I think part of it is just the fact that we're seeing more CP laners coming on in as well. You see less of the CP junglers, but Scarf is going to be the lock-in here for Clash. This is looking like a very similar composition to what they ran last game.
To be fair, it could be a simple situation of them saving the Baptiste for the last pick,
potentially.
knowing that maybe they know Clash doesn't play Baptiste, and they wanted to take the Kestrel because Kestrel gets played against Baptiste a lot. So there is that possibility. With the Glaive here, though, this would be such a good Baptiste pick now. Like, the opportunity is so strong for Dynasty to just grab Baptiste. It would counter the Glaive. It would really do well against the Scarf and the Lyra.
And finally, Glaive comes out. He's one of my favorite junglers because his afterburn is such a scary ability that can displace a hero and give a lot of plays and set up a lot of plays in lane, in terms of lane ganks, etc. So let's see if they will pick up the Baptiste here and run a weapon Kestrel would be the option. But with so much CC, a double silence with Echo, right? And then a Fearsome Shade. Scarf cannot get an ultimate off.
Yeah.
Scarf's ultimate can be canceled by the stun and a Fearsome Shade. And Ordain. I mean, there's a lot of stuns and CCs in this composition here.
And honestly, like, there's potential with how Echo's been buffed as well. There's potential to even go Echo on jungle. You can have the full ultimate combo coming on through. Yeah, there's a huge amount of AoE CC.
I think it's not wise to do jungle Baptiste Echo. It's better to just get Broken Myth, Shatterglass, Clockwork, because when you have stacks Broken Myth and you have Clockwork and you time it properly with your his heroic perk, which gives double ability damage, and you do a Fearsome Shade, that Fearsome Shade does significantly a lot of damage if done properly.
It's the kind of situation where it's like, yeah, 2 would be nice, but when I've got one that's the power of 2, I just don't need it anymore. It's time to get on into game number 4. Dynasty are 2-1 up right now. They're looking to move on into our quarterfinals. Let's see if they can do it as we head up to the caster desk.
Well, thank you very much. Once again, Munchables, our analyst, breaking it down for us. Denominating, I think Glaive fans around the world rejoice to see the pick, and then Baptiste comes out with the Catherine, and maybe you're rethinking things.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. So I do really like the Glaive and Scarf together. They have a very interesting combination on how things really work. You can put an enemy in a dangerous position where Scarf is able to really get a lot of damage down. But this Baptiste-Catherine combo is something that has really been scary.
It's incredibly scary. There's so much lockdown, and it's really hard. Like they said, HF guy, you can wind up your Dragon's Breath, but you can actually have that canceled off from very far away now. Hell's Devil and Mowgli putting a lot of damage out here to both sides. Hell's Devil, he has that sigil. He's going to throw it down. The Mowgli finds the stun. Hell's Devil dropping low. You got to get out of here, bud. He'll use his boots to go ahead and boost himself forward. And it looks like Mowgli wants to actually hang around, throwing his flare out. Hell's Devil will throw his own, and very early aggression coming out here. I love to see it, almost like a little bit of North America here coming out. Mowgli steals the mid away. Cheeky plays, and he'll be burning as he runs away, but regenerating up at the same time.
Yeah, that heal is going to allow him to come over and be more aggressive with Riku Meza. Hell's Devil will steal it away, but here's this deadly combination early.
There's the stun, and this should be Hell's Devil going down, and it will be first blood to Dynasty. That's not what you want to see if you're a Clash fan.
It's definitely not. Now, obviously, this Scarf is going to be a little bit more late game, but I mean, so is this Catherine Baptiste combo. It really handles well at all points of the game.
Not to mention the weapon Kestrel. I mean, when that Kestrel gets a few items, that is incredibly scary.
It definitely is, and what's nice about the composition that Dynasty has here into the Scarf is there is so much lockdown. Mowgli has that really reliable Merciless Pursuit. The Ordain can come out of Riku Meza. We also have the Fearsome Shade at level 6 that'll come out of Riku Meza.
Right.
As well as we have to be careful about those active camos that a weapon Kestrel can drop mid-fight. There's just so much for HF Guy to be worried about here that it's going to really take perfect play coming out of Clash.
What's crazy to me, though, I mean, we're looking at HF Guy, and of course he has to worry about these things. Ricky Meza burning down, HF Guy landed the Spitfire group there. But it's Hell's Devil with his if he arcane passages with aggression at all. I mean, he can arcane pass it onto an active camo. Or if Glaive goes in for an afterburn, he can get stunned up too. So I mean, everybody's in danger here.
Yeah, everybody absolutely is. And the one nice thing that Clash really has here is that Scarf outranges Baptiste so much.
Right.
If you can get a Spitfire and a goop down onto Baptiste, he's incredibly squishy. He doesn't have any way like a Vox would to Sonic Zoom out of a puddle. You know, we don't have that. So if you can land your abilities onto Rukameza, you can really force him out of a fight very, very easily. And Catherine, yes, works well with Baptiste, but doesn't have that same healing capability that the Lyra does for Hell's Devil.
HF Guy with the Spitfire, he lands the goop as well. He's rooted up and he's in a bad place. HF Guy should be going down here, doing his best to dance around, and of course Hell's Devil bought him a bit of time, but second kill going to Dynasty, and that looked a bit too easy.
Yeah, Dynasty being one game up here, really looking to close this one out. We could see another game
Stun
five.
the Hell's Devil. He's holding the sigil. He's just waiting to try and maybe juke around, but he goes down. Third kill for Dynasty. Not only that, they're going to take the front half of the jungle as well.
All 3 kills going on to Rukameza on this Baptiste as well.
Uh-oh.
So that's, you know, gonna start to be reflected in these fights. Obviously, we have the first blood onto him. We have seen HF Guy make some good rotations, but we're already 1,000 gold lead up here at 4 minutes on this Catherine and Baptiste. So as Baptiste gets to level 6, as that Fearsome Shade comes online, he's gonna really start to take off here, especially if he can use that Fearsome Shade to pin the enemy against a wall.
Oh, that's so good.
Because, you know, the Scarf wants to be far away from Baptiste, right? So if that can be used to lock them up as a group, and then those bad mojos come through, that's a scary
Those
thing.
are the terrible mojos you don't ever want to face. Hell's Devil has to get himself out of there. Glimmer Shot's really doing a bunch of damage. You see Tricky landing those. Now, I feel like this is a very Tricky-esque hero. A high damage output, and he has a very good sense of when to engage, when he can apply damage. So I'm really excited to see if he can actually get this Kestrel into the late game, what he can do with it.
Yeah, we talked about how mechanically tuned Dynasty is. I mean, they're just so good no matter what hero you give them, their mechanics are on point, and that's something that a weapon Kestrel has to have. So as you mentioned, this is a very tricky-esque hero, and I can't wait to see how they're able to play it. But if Mercilli's can make a good dive, again, if you can punt the Baptiste into a dangerous position where Hell's Devil can then, or I mean, HF Guy can then get a Spitfire and a Goop down, it could be an easy kill going over to the side of Clash.
You would rather see that than potentially blowing up the Kestrel?
I want to see a very even back and forth game here.
Okay.
And I think the way that that Clash is going to have to do so is capitalize on the fact that Rukameza is the most vulnerable target.
Right. Well, Rukameza has that Shatterglass complete here. We're about 5 minutes into this one. Dynasty up 3-0. They have a net worth lead, albeit it's not a huge lead, but they're building it up, and it feels like the momentum's going their way. Clash is going to have to make a stand at some point. I don't know if it has to happen right now, but at some point they're going to have to say, you know, you can't have our front half of the jungle anymore.
Yeah, they definitely have to, and their HF Guy is with the answer right there. It does clean up that Trien. Yeah. The thing is that, you know, again, it's the Glaive Lyra, you'd expect to be winning the early game, but because the Baptiste and the Catherine just function at all points of the game well together, it's very difficult for Clash to take an advantage.
Oh, they're going to find the one day, and they find the second stun, and they just chop him down. I'm not sure they needed the Fearsome Shade, but hey, it felt good.
I mean, just to secure the kill, and now they're in a position where they can really push this wave in. They have all 3 members here, and Hell's Devil's already taken a lot of damage.
A lot of damage, holding a fountain, Sigil on cooldown. Tricky took so much damage, though. They keep him alive in a fighting shape. One shot, a bunch of damage onto HF Guy. Hell's Devil will hang out with the HF Guys. They're able to fend off the aggression from Dynasty. Dynasty up 4-0, but you can see HF Guy, I mean, he almost took Tricky down there.
Well, what was beautiful was those Spitfires really kind of threaded the needle there. Mowgli didn't block out that Spitfire, and that's what really got that burn down on the Tricky. The Goop followed up, and again, both the Baptiste and the Kestrel are very squishy. If those abilities are going to land, it is going to be a very devastating situation, and the Fountain is used in a point where it never should have had to be done. You know,
this is just skill shot city here. Both teams, like, you got to land your Spitfires. Incredible damage if you can do so. On the flip side, exactly the same. Like, Tricky has to avoid damage, apply damage, and we'll see if they can do so. Now, Dynasty feels like, not that necessarily that they're on the back foot, but it does feel like Clash has tuned up the aggression, turned it up a little bit here. They're going to move it nice. Afterburn, Tricky should go down. They burst him down. Now looking for more. Mowgli dropping low. Has to self-found to keep alive. Dragon's Breath going to come out of HF. I don't know if you want to go in Fearsome Shade. Cancels the aggression off. Rikumeza moving in. Potentially looking for a kill here. Hell's Devil's low. HF guy as well, but Mercedes definitely in fighting shape, so they have to respect that. Rikumeza hanging out here. One shot actually connecting on the Mercedes, and whoa! They just blew him up. That bad mojo coming through. Huge damage.
Yeah, off the back of a good one-shot, one-kill coming from base from Tricky, was able to really start that off. And now Dynasty is going to be able to get a little bit of damage down on this turret. I don't think they have enough Humanist to take it, but that's a pretty good chunk.
A nice little chunk, definitely. HF guy able to get out into the lane and kind of fend off the aggression coming out onto that turret. Tricky right back up there, but like you said, and that's one of the beautiful things with Kestrel, you know, whether, of course, the CP Kestrel are going to be throwing them out a little more often. It's a different playstyle, but same thing, that's a lot of damage, huge burst damage. You throw it out from the base, and if you have Rikumeza charged up, ready to go, you can just burst them down. It's beautiful.
Right, and you know, speaking of the Crystal versus the Weapon Kestrel, the Weapon Kestrel obviously here, the reason I want them to focus on Rikumeza is if Glaive comes in for that afterburn, Tricky can use that active camo in the middle of a fight.
Yes.
So that's going to take a lot of focus off of what Clash is able to do, and then they've really committed a lot to trying to find Tricky, and Rikumeza is going to be able to get into that front line, get a lot of damage down, and it's really, I just like the draft more out of Dynasty. This Baptiste and Catherine combo, paired up with this Kestrel even, is just, it's such a devastating combo.
I mean, it's a phenomenal draft. I really like it. Incredible power. Mowgli, though, eating quite a few Spitfires at this point. HF guy, the Frostburn's actually doing decent work for him at this point. You can see that it kind of makes Dynasty hesitate if they get hit to slow it up just a little bit. Of course, Hell's Devil providing a little bit of slow as well. Goops down. Rikumeza taking a bit of damage. Bright Bulwark down as well. I thought the Fearsome Shade actually coming out. The one shot comes from down in the southeast, connecting on the Clash, but not quite bringing enough damage to threaten anybody's life at this point. Both teams holding their fountains here. Mowgli moving forward, looking for a target, thinking better of it. But you see both teams, just they're looking just for a positioning error that they can capitalize on.
Right, and both teams are kind of at a little bit of an advantage in the fight and a little disadvantage. Yes, there's a lot of crowd control that can come.
Oh, Afterburn, I don't know, he's got the active camo. Look at the damage! Tricky light him up, but Mowgli burning down. A perfect fountain coming out, keeping him alive. Wow!
That was really well played out of both sides. Again, they have a little advantage and disadvantage here. The AoE cooldowns are down for the side of Dynasty, but there's also no Crucible for Hell's Devil as he gets dropped, Humanist. And now Dynasty looking to put some aggression down.
Yeah, Hell's Devil will pick up the Crucible right now, but with him down, actually Mercedes moving in, Tricky taking a lot of damage. Mowgli, oh, he gets one, he gets two! Looking potentially for three. Dragon Breath's gonna slow him up. They didn't even need it. Mercedes takes them down. The Glaive has flexed his power.
Just a slight overstay from the side of Dynasty Gaming there. Again, you give Mercedes that inch and he is gonna take it. And that's what we seen. The turret gets traded back. You know, it looked like it was going to be a Dynasty turret, but it instead goes over to Clash, giving him that first objective advantage. In that fight, it was Hell's Devil that dropped very, very soon. It did allow Dynasty to get a lot of aggression down, but not before Mercedes comes in with an afterburn of Bloodsong to clean it up. And then HF guy, just for the fireworks, throws out the Dragon's Breath there.
Just for the fireworks. I mean, sometimes you say calculated, and that one miscalculated there out of Dynasty. Now, they're still doing a good job so far, but this is one of the few times in this game they've been down in net worth. Clash at reversing the trend so far, and it's exciting stuff to see. Of course, we would expect Clash to have the ability to do so, but I didn't think that they would get all three of Dynasty there. Right Bulwark down, Dynasty moving forward, Glimmer shots connecting, and one shot, not quite connecting on the Hell's Devil, but Hell's Devil continuously throwing out the sigils, healing himself and his team. Ordained down to Glimmer shots next for Mercedes, moving forward with the Merciless Pursuit, but they don't have the damage ready to follow right now. Mowgli forced out. Did they go too deep once again? He's got the, oh, they take it down! Mercedes, Dragon's back, burn baby, burn with the active camo, they chop him down, they want Hell's Devil, but the Arcade Passage, they'll take a wild ride into the brush. Bright Bulwark's down, they get the attack right there, the kill, the turret as well. Dynasty taking the fight.
Yeah, and these are the fights we love to see, Humanists. Very back and forth, very even team play here. It is both of these teams now with first turret down. The gold is pretty close, 500 gold over for Dynasty. but, you know, just well executed there. It was Mercilli's coming in, finding the kill on Mowgli. That was a huge, huge takedown, but then they stayed a little too long. HF guy went in a little too far, got locked down by the Ordained. Bad Mojo and Glimmer Shots come through, clean him up, and that's really what it took then for Dynasty to just turn it around. That Scarf being down is a lot of damage.
Oh, I mean, that is the scary damage right now. Actually, you know what, I have to take that back because the Glaive right now is doing incredible damage himself once he gets on target. Hell's Devil Ordained up, he's going to be stunned as well. He's sitting on top of his sigils. Oh my goodness! Mowgli just blast trimmers him into the netherworld right there. Dynasty comboing it up, and they just put Hell's Devil in the dirt.
They absolutely did. Rukumeza's sitting up now at 7-1 with just the Shatter Glass and the Clockwork complete here. But that's all you really need because of that heroic perk coming out of Rukumeza. The Reap, once you stack up those soul shards, you get 100% additional power on all of your abilities, but more specifically, that Bad Mojo comes through, hits you for a big 600 damage, and that is absolutely devastating on a squishy hero like Scarf.
Yeah, it's hard to predict as well. I mean, a lot of times you're trying to keep up with the rhythm, get ready for when he's buffed up, but it can catch you off guard. Now, Dynasty, they'll be able to take the mids away here. The flare is coming out of Hell's Devil. They want to keep track exactly where Mowgli is. Gonna find another sub. Can they take Hell's Devil down? Just like, oh, they do it again! He dies before the Arcane Passage could actually come through. Mowgli, Tricky, and Rukumeza combing up so good. Stormguard active, he moves through that Arcane Passage there just to the front side of the fight. Now, what can Dynasty do as they close down, pinning HF guy down? Reflex is used a little bit too soon. Mercilli's with the afterburn, buying time. Tricky on the turret, but they have the turret aggro. HF guy winds up the Dragon's Breath. Dynasty dropping. Oh, they cut him down! How about 1-2? Just destroying the carrion jungler out of Clash. With that, they'll take a turret. And Denominate, what else can they achieve here?
They have so much damage, they can push another one off to kill a Hell's Devil as well. That is just some good play there out of Dynasty.
Phenomenal play.
Tricky, so much damage with the Sorrow Blade, double Monocle coming through on this Kestrel. As we get into the replay, we see exactly the amount of damage this hero can put down, as well as Rukumeza. We see right here, 3 Soul Shards, gets the 4th, gets the Bad Mojo comes through to clean up Mercilli's. And again, Tricky just destroyed HF guy. There's not enough there's no defense on Scarf besides this reflex block. Those Glimmer Shots, 1, 2, 3, dead dragon.
That is a beautiful thing right there. I mean, there are a few heroes that output as much damage as a weapon Kestrel. When you start to get 3 into the 4th item, Bonesaw complete now for Tricky. He's about to start having some fun.
Yeah.
Not continue, amplify the fun.
Yeah, he's
into Clash
time so far. I do like the Bonesaw this patch. The Tension Bow did receive a little bit of a nerf. Not anything devastating. It is still usable, but the additional attack speed that the Bonesaw gives you here will refresh your Glimmer Shots quicker, just because that's how Kestrel's kit works. And obviously, as we have 5 stacks of Adrenaline on Tricky, it will allow him to continuously use those abilities because it makes it cost them less energy. And this is going to be Dynasty. 2 turrets stand between them. If they're able to find a kill, they should easily be able to take down these turrets, but man, Tricky's dropping low.
This is a precarious position to be in right now for Clash. Dynasty feel like they have everything. They move in with their Arcane Passage very aggressively. Fearsome Shade feels like it's going to disengage. Has lost Hell's Devil. Mercilli's dropping low, but they got Tricky. Mercilli's moving out, trying to get out of harm's way. HF guy looks like he'll be able to get out as well. A little bit surprising that they couldn't actually lock him down there. And they peel it back. A 1-for-1 at the end of that one.
Yeah, 1-for-1, not bad. I really thought they were going to get Mercilli's. They turned their attention on to HF guy, thinking, you know, he's got the better wave clear. You know, if we're trying to push these turrets, it's going to be the Scarf that's going to be easier to, you know, push us back. So if they would have found HF guy, they could have really put a heavy push on there and, you know, maybe even taken a turret off the back of just a single kill.
Well, they don't have too many turrets actually remaining here. Now, the thing is, Denominate, I'm wondering, like, what is going through the mind of the Clash? Like, if you could ask this team, if you could be the captain, you tell the team, like, this is how I want to fight this out. How do they play it out?
I think they look forward to never giving a Baptiste Catherine over again, first of all. but really, it's been tricky. You know, we talked about how the Baptiste and the Catherine function well together. Tricky has really forced HF Guy back. Those glimmer shots coming through onto this little dragon have really made it difficult for HF Guy to come through and make an engagement. So if you are the side of Clash here, you have to try to allow Scarf to poke. We need to get an Eve of Harvest complete here on HF Guy as well. We're not even really close, and we got to try to get some poke down, try to get some broken myth stacks built up first. Use your range to your advantage, and that's just not something that we've seen Clash do. They go in a little too far with the glaive, he gets forced out early, and then Dynasty run away with it, and you know, the aggression is not going to be let up when you're in a position that Dynasty is.
Absolutely. Now, Dynasty have an interesting positional advantage, forcing Clash to go ahead and port back to the base. Now, with this, you can consider that Kraken is on the menu. They're going to drop down. This should be a free Crystal Sentry as well. And Dynasty just a very clean rotation. This was premeditated, you have to assume, and they're executing on it incredibly well.
Yeah, it definitely is a good rotation coming out of Dynasty here. It is going to prevent Scarf, you know, even longer from getting that final offensive item built and online. Mowgli has the Echo in his pocket, ready to go. Level 10 Infusion. If he can get a double silence down here we go.
Oh, he got the stun, he throws. Looks like the Echo is out. Second blast streamer ready to go. HF Guy, he has to get back in the back line. Vainglory trading. They've lost Tricky. Clash has the fight that they're looking for. HF Guy, he blocks that stun, moving back, dodges the bad mojo. Mercilli's the afterburn. He's on to Vainglory. He finds the double kill. Mercilli's still alive. HF Guy, Spitfire, the Goop. Mowgli burning down, doesn't have the Storm Guard. Clash have done it. They've got the ace. Our Clash reversing this one, Denominate.
It's looking really good for them there. The excellent play out of Hell's Devil here was Mercilli's winning with the glaive, was able to find a lot of damage on the Tricky. We'll see it in the replay here. The flare coming out of Hell's Devil, allowing Mercilli's to continue to have vision on Tricky, narrowly avoiding that active camo there, is going to allow Mercilli's to clean it up. He's going to come back in. HF Guy's very, very low, but Mercilli's coming in, getting this crowd control down, is going to allow HF Guy to come in, and then Scarf. Mowgli already used that stun. No way to clean up the kill onto HF Guy. That broken myth had ramped up on Scarf. They're able to find a kill, and now here we are. HF Guy found the gold off the back of that fight. Eve of Harvest is now complete. That's going to give him so much more sustainability in this game going forward.
Yeah, it's a nice pickup for him, though. His infusion just timing out, though, and he wasn't able to pick up a fresh one, so maybe we'll see how that has the impact here. Now, Kraken marching forward. Clash, I'd like to see them play this defensively and just poke out here.
Yeah, they definitely could. It was looking like Tricky was going to have a good active camo there. It looked like a double stun for him. Not quite in the positioning. They're just going to focus on the Kraken here, and they're taking him down very quickly.
They are. They have incredible damage at this point. Now, Wartread's Blast Shimmer is going to connect onto two. The one shot coming out, body blocked off, but the fearsome shade puts Hell's Devil down. Mercilli's turns it. He's on to Tricky. He wants the catch on Mercilli's. Have you gone too deep, my friend? A double kill for Rikumeza as Kraken looks like it could potentially put down the choke point. No, the damage is too immense from Dynasty. The Clash overstepped himself there.
Yeah, they definitely did. Mercilli's turned around, tried to go in and find that kill onto Tricky, but without Hell's Devil there, who's, again, been so good at, once they make an engagement, he drops a flare onto Tricky, which is really what allows Mercilli's to continue that damage, because you're taking away Weapon Kestrel's ability. Once, you know, Weapon Kestrel, you can drop that active camo in the middle of a fight, allow yourself to reposition, but if there's a flare right over your head, you know, it makes it a lot easier for Glaive to find free damage, which is gonna, you know, if you take the biggest threat for Scarf out, that's what's going to give HF Guy that opportunity to ramp up and really use his range over Rikumeza to their advantage. This could still be anybody's game.
Oh, this is definitely anybody's game here. And you know, Denominate, I'm looking at the kill scores across the board, and Rikumeza, I'm very impressed here with this Baptiste. You know, our analysts talked about he has the ability to play it. They didn't know if they'd pull it out here. Obviously, it's a nice strat for them, but sitting there 12-2, 20 minutes in, this is having a phenomenal game. They needed to. Now, Hell's Devil stunned up once again. Huge damage to Bad Mojo's Arcane Passage disconnecting the fight. Mercilli's moving in, though, and he's right in and back out as the team makes the call to disengage. Mowgli moving forward. Using those war treads, it doesn't look like Dynasty is going to find the engage that they're looking for.
Yeah, and I'm actually surprised that Dynasty didn't go for that off the back of, you know, the Crystal Sentry's down, and that Bright Bulwark was burned out for nothing.
Yeah, it really was.
And it really was a huge opportunity for them to engage. Boots are available, but here we go.
Tricky trying to find the positioning. This is Mercedes on the front side of this fight. HF guy, you're in. The HF guy's in so deep. The fearsome Shake catches too. They're able to take Hell's Devil down. Now Mercedes as well. 591 damage on the bad mojo. Almost connecting on that one shot there. Dynasty, oh, they got the stun. All Clash fans are just terrified and sad, disappointed at this point. Dynasty fans, raise the roof. These guys played phenomenally here. This is just such a beautiful thing to watch.
Yeah, it is, and the amount of damage that Tricky has on this Kestrel, they should easily be able to close out the game here. You know, Clash is down for 10 seconds. This is going to be game going over to Dynasty. Clash put up a really good performance, though, and both of these teams coming in with a sub. I was actually really impressed with HF guy here.
I'm really impressed with all of these players here. A phenomenal show. We saw comebacks from both teams. And Dynasty Gaming, congratulations to you guys. I think a lot of people predicting that Dynasty would take the win here and move forward, but Clash definitely had the ability to. I think all of these guys, their first time actually on the stage.
Yeah, they fought their way up through the Challengers back in the spring season. And, you know, really have been a tight-knit group. Unfortunately, they weren't able to have Agony here, who has really been the big game changer for this team for me. And I think that's played a big part in our results here.
Yeah, played a big part. I think also it's important to look at the mentality of these players coming back, and it's really impressive stuff. But to go ahead and break this series down, this last game, we'll throw it to Munchables and our analysts.
Thank you very much, guys. What a game. What a series coming out. Dynasty take it in the end 3-1. I'm not going to lie. I thought that was going to go to 5 games there, especially
It looked
that,
like it
that
at
ace
times.
that Clash got towards the end of the game. I was like, okay, this is going to be a long one. But Dynasty managing to keep control of themselves. And that's an important thing, because we said after the first game, we weren't sure if Dynasty was going to be kind of tilting off the face of the earth. They kept control. They managed to take the series.
Yeah, this is something we've wanted to see Dynasty improve on, was their ability to close out games, and they were able to do it here. They started to throw it a little bit. They gave opportunities to Clash. That is still something they really will need to work on against other top teams, you know, against the rest of Europe, against North America tomorrow. But they were able to prevent themselves from going off the deep end and allowing Clash to get fully into the game.
Yeah, and Dynasty, again, the early game, Clash needs to figure that out, and Dynasty just abused it and was able to carry a lot of their momentum into the mid game. I mean, they had a 1K goal lead, 5 kills right at the 9-minute mark. However, they did overstay at the 10-minute mark. It was so risky, and then they basically swapped the gold lead to Clash, 1K, and then Clash gets the ace and the turret. But Dynasty was able to pull back, and you see Catherine and Baptiste combo is just so powerful. They don't even have to focus a carry. If they can combo that onto Lyra, she's very squishy, and they can just explode her. But this is the turnaround for Clash here. They overstay, and Glaive gets a kill, Scarf gets a kill on Catherine, and then look at the ultimate there. It slows down Baptiste, can't run away, and then they get a turret from there.
Yeah, and Clash managed to get themselves back into the game, and that happened a couple of times throughout this game, but definitely special mention in this game to Riku Meza, who his final scoreline was like 15 kills or something ridiculous. He had a phenomenal performance.
And again, you want to feel bad for Clash because they almost came back in this one, but at the same time, you can't feel that bad for them because they allowed this Baptiste to go through. They had the option to ban it. They had the option to pick it if they wanted to. They knew the Catherine was there, but they let this Baptiste go through regardless. The draft, I think, was definitely a big question mark in this entire series. Both of these teams had some questionable drafts, but you know, there's certain compositions that you don't let through. And Catherine Baptiste is one of them.
And also, Baptiste, when he gets 4 soul fragments, he's empowered. He does 35% basic attack damage and enhance, and 100% ability damage. That's why he's doing like 500 plus damage with 1 mojo. You cannot fight a Baptiste when he's empowered. Just back off and then go back in.
He was always getting the ult off while empowered and also blocking Scarf ults with them. This was the fight, though, where Clash actually found a way back into the game. This was where it started to actually look a little bit dicey for Dynasty.
Yeah, and this is where they lost, because again, Dynasty is not focusing the same. Riku Meza is on HF guy, and then Tricky is on Mercedes, and that's when they lose the fight because they're split focused. Their comp excels when they have synergy and they're focusing on the same target. Doesn't matter who it is. And the silence also didn't help, but also Mowgli, I don't know why he didn't max the Catherine stun. You know, it goes from 1 second to 1.2 seconds, and 0.2 seconds is a big deal in the late game.
It doesn't sound like much, but when you're in a team fight that only lasts 2 to 3 seconds, it can be an absolute game changer. So definitely, it's a lot of personal preference sometimes there, but in the end, these fearsome shades were just so good from Riku
Yeah,
Meza
and
all the
he's
way
doing
throughout.
it when he's empowered. It does 160 damage per second, and you factor in Broken Myth and the Clockwork Crystal amplification damage. That does, you know, close to 300 damage per second. And if you're in that, you know, you're gonna take so much damage on top of the Kestrel with her, you know, almost 100% crit rate. It's amazing how much damage will come out of this composition.
Yeah, it certainly is. And also a lot of it AoE damage as well. So you're able to melt through these players and take the victory. And you can see Dynasty taking the victory there, taking the series for themselves. And they've netted themselves a spot in tomorrow's games. They're going to be going up against Cloud9. So definitely something to look forward to tomorrow. That is going to be one heck of a game. Dynasty, they're going to need to clean up their play somewhat to go up against Cloud9, a team that we know for very clean play. I think when you think of Cloud9, just clean mechanical play is pretty much the epitome of what you expect.
Especially in a late game where, you know, Dynasty cannot make one mistake. One mistake and boom, Cloud9 will just ace you immediately because they're one of the best teams when it comes to late game team fights. But I have to say, overall, European teams, they really showed up today. It was a fantastic performance from all the teams that showed up, and I loved how well the captains, junglers, and the laners played.
All right, well, we do have Dan standing by on stage. He's got Tricky on this stage with him. So let's see how Tricky is feeling off the back of that victory.
It's tricky to rock a rhyme, that's right on time.
Tricky.
Yes! It's even better because he doesn't even know that song because he's only 15. But what a performance from you guys. Incredible stuff. But before we get into the good stuff, let's talk about game one. What went wrong?
It was kind of a combination of everything. Like, we had a worse draft because I did the draft and I completely forgot about Idris. I just, for a second, I forgot he existed. And once they logged it in, I realized that I made a huge mistake with that. But even though we had the worst draft, we did pretty well mid-game. We had a pretty bad early game too. And late game, we just threw at Kraken too. So
It almost went wrong again. It almost went wrong in that game 4, but it didn't. And the analyst was saying how dominant you look. Now tomorrow you go in and you'll play Cloud9. How are you feeling about that one?
it's definitely going to be tough because Cloud9 punishes you so well. It's a thing that you may notice about my playstyle as well. Like, I try to punish every mistake, and they have perfected doing that on every single mistake, no matter at what stage of the game. So that'll be really difficult to play against, but I'm positive that we'll have like a shot, kind of.
Or a hope, a miracle, as we heard G2 say. They were saying they needed a hope and a miracle against TSM. Now, when we were watching you play, you have a very weird position when you play. Like, you have your feet up, your bum down, and you're kind of arced. How on earth do you play like that?
I always play like that, because I usually play on my couch, just laying, because I'm like too lazy to sit, so yeah, I do that, but it's fine.
A 15-year-old too lazy to sit. Like, how does that even work? Congratulations, you were the MVP as well for the game. An absolute pleasure. Now, back over to Munchables and the rest of the guys on the desk.
He absolutely was the MVP. Too lazy to sit down, but he's feeling chill on the back of that one. I've got to say, definitely still cool, calm, collected, ready to get into the games tomorrow, I think it's fair to say. I'm excited to see how Dynasty are going to do tomorrow. And Tricky did manage to grab himself the MVP on that one, so congratulations to him. But I do want to remind you guys that there are giveaways going on across the course of today. These are happening in Twitch chat and Facebook and YouTube as well. You've got to keep your eyes on the chat on Facebook and YouTube as the giveaways are going on over in the chat there. But Levine VG, Good Nightmare, and Mr. PRGR are going to be the winners from Twitch chat. I'm just going to be trying to read these off the top of my head each and every time. They're the winners from Twitch chat, but Facebook and YouTube, keep your eyes peeled as well, as you guys are going to be winning those Ringo skins across the course of today. And we have the even more skins going across the course of the weekend as well, so keep your eyes peeled.